Hey everybody, this is Matt. I'm making a new Heroclix video. This is Team STOPCLIX. If you don't know, I guess we need to go around and introduce ourselves. My name is Matt. I'm the one that does the YouTube channel. I've been playing since 2009. That was when NECA took over the game from Tops. Hammer of Thor came out, right? Yep, that's right. And I play mostly fun teams. Very team player, very much common, uncommon, rare player. Sometimes I'll throw in a super rare too, but I usually don't have the chases or anything. So that's my play style. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, O'Malley.
I started playing because Joker's Wild came out and I wanted to play a DC tabletop game, and then I fell in love with the game. If top 4 is the cut on your local, I won't make it, but if top 8 is, I'll make the cut.
I mean, it's good. John, introduce yourself. How long you been playing? What kind of your play style?
Yeah, my name's John. I've been playing Heroclix since the start of the game with Hyper Time and Infinity Challenge. I've seen a lot of stuff come and go. I've played a lot of different styles. Sometimes it's a little overboard. Sometimes it's just for fun. But, I do like having a good match. I think that's more important than the victory or the loss, is just having fun with the people you're hanging with. Don't get me wrong, it is cool to win a tournament or place well, but, I think it's more an aspect of who you're hanging out with and the fun you're having with the game.
I'm Chris. I'm the group's competitive player. I like to know what the meta is, keep in touch with any pieces that are coming out in a set that could possibly have some meta potential, and I have to tone it down in building teams for my locals. But hey,
Okay.
I can still have fun too.
So the whole reason we're getting together is because we all have been playing the game from a different amount of time. We got somebody from the very beginning. That person, it's kind of hard to tell. This person, we have other people that started later on. I'm kind of in the middle. We also have different play styles. We have someone very fun and very competitive, and people in between. So I think it's really interesting having different perspectives on these changes, and just seeing what different people are looking forward to, not looking forward to, all that kind of stuff. So I think what the way we're going to do this is we're going to go down each of the articles, just briefly talk about what the article stated, and then we're just going to talk about how each of us feel on the topic. If we need to go in a little bit of a rant, we can. Try not to blow it up out of the water or nothing, and we'll just move on and try to get a good idea of how everybody sits on these changes. So the first article is World Zero Intro and Goals, and it basically it broke down what their goals were going into all these changes. They made a little thing said these are the things they're trying to achieve: making Heroclix easier and more fun to try for beginners, making Heroclix more compelling for rookies, and focusing Heroclix on the fun and strategic choices for veterans. Let's see. They talk about some other stuff. More obvious low rarity figures, more obvious sets, more power combos, shifting complexity, all that kind of stuff. I guess how does everybody feel? I guess we'll just go around in a circle. How does everybody feel about these three the three goals: making things easier and more fun for beginners, making Heroclix more compelling for rookies, that people that are not beginning the game but are they've learned how to play the game but they're still learning, and then focusing Heroclix on the fun and strategic choices for veterans. I guess no, let's start with Chris. We'll go that way.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I guess as far as I will say that new players coming into the game do have to ingest a massive amount of rules and a lot of changes, a lot of nuances. It becomes a bit of a hassle to try to actually learn how to play the game. So I can definitely see the need to try to simplify things. Now, as far as, making it more compelling for rookies, I think if you just, I think that's just two of the same things. Because really, it's you can't really make it more compelling for rookies than more so than it already is beyond making it easier and more fun for beginners. And just I don't know what the point is of that. It seems like what is that, like advertising, like more superheroes, or I don't know. But as far as focusing HeroClix on the fun and strategic choices, um, I don't really know what they mean by that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know exactly what they mean by that. As far as for me, I like choosing pieces that will have uh impacts on certain teams strategies. I like having certain support powers. I like to make sure that I'm able to do some damage, and if I can, I like to try to incorporate some healing, or some hard to kill, some options. But other than that, I don't really know exactly what would make compelling for veterans beyond oh, I've got, yeah, like the legacy cards. That's compelling for veterans.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that. But as far as beyond that, I mean, we've been clamoring for that for a long time.
Yeah.
Being able, the ability, I mean, in one form or fashion, either having more support for Golden Age,
Yeah.
or, but I will say this is a neat way to do that, is bring life out of some of the old figures. But it just feels very limited and much more of a market grab. They could have just printed out a bunch of rules or a bunch of rules updates in PDF for all the different sets that they've had previous, and just been like, boom, you want to play with the old ones? Here you go. I don't know. It just seems like a market grab.
Okay, so just to clarify, we have all seen the new rule book and the new power ability card, so we know what the new powers do and all that kind of stuff. So, John, how do you feel about these goals? And do you think what you've seen of everything, are they meeting these goals?
I think it's some ideas that get batted around, and then they come up with a approach they think will get them there. But I think in a lot of instances they fall short. They've had things in place for a long time. New Guy Night, the free comic book day thing. They had Batman Alpha. There were plenty of ways for Wizkids to sink the hook into somebody and get them to start, or at least want to learn to play this game. And whether it was a collector, a comic book person, or a gamer, there's these different groups of people that could be, brought on board. But like Chris said, to learn these rules, it's a lot to digest. And we've had a lot of people at the venue that play the game for about a month, and then they don't like losing, or they have a hard time adapting to the rules. So
Right.
before you know it, they liquidate their collection. They're playing some other game.
Yeah.
I've dealt with it from a point of, I've got a 9-year-old I'm trying to teach the game to, and I've got a 16-year-old, which is, he's got some work to do, but he's becoming pretty good at it. He's developing his own strategy. He knows what he likes to play, but he's gleaned it from everybody in this group. and that's been the big thing. You've got to vest yourself in it if you want to do well. You can't just have some kind of grab that, easy way to make this game more accessible is make the boosters more affordable. They don't do that. They've raised the price. It's the whole concept of, if you open a booster and the common uncommons now are not as powerful as the rares, super rares, and chases, the majority of the pieces you're going to get your hands on to try to compete with aren't going to be very competitive. That's shooting yourself in the foot. And, to tie in what Chris said on the choices for veterans, yeah, the legacy cards are awesome. That's one thing they got right, because I'm sitting on a pile of this nonsense for almost 20 years, and hey, I know exactly where Morgan Le Fay is, and thank God I just got this card. So I was stoked about that. But fun and strategic, and you're removing hypersonic, you're removing shape change,
Now, I will like to just asterisk right there. I mean, that is just for these upcoming sets.
Yeah, yeah.
For, I guess, in these benched powers and whatnot. But as far as like the rules updates and things like that, that might be, is that would that be fair to consider separate?
It's a thing where they say a few sets. They never say the next 2 sets
Right.
or the next. I think they say also somewhere along these lines, sets the
Yeah, and
rest of
that's-
this year.
And that's
or
another
something
problem.
along
There's
these
no
lines.
clarification.
Is that if they set? I think the ultimate example is if they had one DC set where they had bench powers for new players and one Marvel set with bench powers for new players. That's a line where you're like, well, maybe if I want to introduce a new player and play Battle Royale, like that might be the set that I bring them to. Do you like Marvel? Let's play whatever Marvel set they do that has bench powers. Do you like DC? Let's play the Wonder Woman set.
Right.
But they don't. They just kind of say, hey, for either the rest of this year or a few sets in the future, there are going to be bench powers.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about bench powers in a second.
But we mentioned just now the
Yeah.
communication's atrocious.
Yeah.
It just is. It is. I mean, that could completely be improved. But like as to how all this has come and gone over the years, I've seen the game. It's got an amazing amount of potential. Like for what you see as to movies and how this comic book stuff has gone so mainstream between the Avengers and what could be Warner Brothers and DC. This is such a vehicle to get people into playing, and for whatever reason, the machine's sputtering. And I hearken this whole bench power stuff to, it's like a football team. I mean, are you just going to have your running game the whole time, or are you going to put some passes in there so you have your whole playbook to pull from? And then therein, it ties back to beginners and rookies. They need to understand what's out there as options. And what do you mean I can't play this? This is on the card. It's more confusion.
Okay, so going on to O'Malley, of those 3 goals, making things easier, more fun for beginners, more compelling for rookies, and keeping fun strategic choices for veterans, how are you thinking these changes are to meeting these goals?
Rule 0 is really just, hey, we're setting the table for everything that's coming forward with what they brought forward. It's going to be good for new and old players. They're trying to say that they're doing things that will be good for everyone. That's what they're wanting to set themselves up with. That's really what this one is. We didn't get a whole lot of information other than a lot of questions on what are they going to say next. That's how this felt to me, is that we're getting information on going, I don't know what their plan is, but we have to wait and see what we get next. And that's how Rule 0 felt to me, and it was just kind of a whole, everyone kind of just like tuning in to like see, okay, what are these rule changes going to be? And that's why some people were very hyper focused. The moment that a rule thing dropped, you would get next day kind of review stuff for it.
Yeah.
So
okay, so yeah, just going forward, if you got it lost in thought or you're done talking, give me some kind of visual thing.
Sure. I'm ready to keep going now.
Okay. I guess my thoughts is, I think a lot of what was important to be said was brought up. It's going to be always a challenge to make the game easier and more fun for beginners. I don't know about compelling for rookies. I don't even know what that means. Give them free loot. That's probably compelling for rookies.
Yeah.
Focusing on the fun and strategic choices for veterans. That's important. Because you can't be throwing part of the fan base under the bus just to appeal to another group. And I think that the important part is, one thing that jumps out to me is easier and more fun to try for beginners, but we can't even play in our venues. So where are beginning players coming from? Where are these new players coming from that they're redesigning the game for? I think that's definitely something that's an interesting brain scratch during a pandemic. We're going into our second. We already had a full year of it. Now we're going into another more. So, where are the beginners coming from?
It's like the Loch Ness Monster or Sasquatch. It's out there, and people say they've seen it, but they don't show up at the venue right now.
Yeah.
Talking about new players.
The elusive
new player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I will like to add that it feels as though like it's obvious that they started the wheels for this back
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
a while back ago,
I think so, yeah.
and didn't have the foresight to just be like, let's hold off, let's pause, let's maybe wait to see how everything pans out. If people are able to get back together again, and play in groups, it seems like it was let's go.
Oh yeah, almost like in a rush by somebody.
Let me say this real quick, because somebody that's we're friends with, he's down in Greenville. His name's John. Had one of the best points I've heard as to where we're at. Everybody's playing online right now, so anything formal has to go through D20 and what have you.
Roll 20
or roll 20.
Roll 20.
Yeah.
And people are going to be itching to sit across the table and play a game when this pandemic's figured out. This is a great opportunity for this game if they can figure out how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm hoping they're gonna try to hit the ground running when we can get back in stores, but when that is, who knows. Let's move on to the next article where they actually started talking about things. The first big change.
Yep.
Rules Article 1, the Indomitable Knot. Basically, they go into it and say, like, this is funny. This part's funny. If you asked 100 Heroclix players what their favorite part of Heroclix is, we suspect you'd get at least 50 different answers.
That doesn't mean you don't listen to them.
Blah, blah, blah. There's something that we knew wasn't as beloved, and it's time for it to go. Pushing damage. Anyways, so in order for them to remove pushing damage from the game, they've had to change a whole bunch of different systems. And basically, they're going to be changing willpower to now it's like a self-leadership.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be making the Indomitable shield the standard shield, so nobody's going to have the regular shield anymore. Anybody who had Colossal Stamina is not going to be a thing anymore. Great Size is going to be like a boosted leadership, or a boosted willpower, to be exact. And nobody's going to take pushing damage at any reason. And unless you have a power that says you can take pushing damage, or no, unless you have a power that says you can click yourself, you just have no option in that.
Or an errata.
Or an errata, like Immortal Hulk gets an errata.
Yeah. They added it on to him as an errata. Yes. They say the basic strategic decision to push your character just doesn't feel good.
I don't like that. I hate the way that they're going about that.
They use some wording in some of these that is just the most like explainery, that is like, this is what we think is the right thing for it, and everyone agrees. And then the moment anyone is like, hey, not everyone agrees with you. We don't know who your everyone is.
Right.
But clearly it's not an everyone. And since they use the phrasing, everyone agrees, it becomes this thing where you're like, no, not everyone agrees. Not even most people agree. It's just the most... It's worded in such a way that it's upsetting for people who don't agree with any of the changes that are made.
Yeah, also you can tell like they preemptively tried to attack any naysayers by saying at the very first line, if you asked 100 different players, it would be different answers.
Yeah.
So they already like went to, drop down the peg that, oh, well, if you have any sort of gripes about it, well, that's not what the majority think.
That's not what the majority... And it's a thing that, like, we go through where it's like, even if it's a thing that you like or you dislike, later on we go into prob. And or theme team prob, let's just say that specific one for right now for me, because it's the thing that I'm, like, kind of fine with, that it's effectively prob.
Yeah.
I can be like, they explain it with the exact same wording that they do with willpower, that it has to do with that this is a too complicated thing to explain for new players, therefore we are changing it this way. And they are speaking for a variety of people, saying that this is what the majority of people want, when
they don't know what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing in all this. The how they approach this one aspect of the game, and I have played this from its inception. Pushing damage was a way to manipulate a dial, and it's part of the strategy of the game. And a theme PC is a perfect example. You go out and attack. You have a follow-up attack. If you have to, that first attacker can push and maybe come on to something better so your second attack hits. This was all part of the strategy. So to hear in this polling that now they've decided pushing damage just isn't gonna fly or is too hard to teach somebody. When I told my 16-year-old this was happening, he could have rubbed a bald spot on top of his. What do you mean, Dad? They can't do that. And there are these things that are kind of integral as to how these figures interact. And for the life of me, this decision makes no sense.
Okay.
It just really doesn't. It
Okay.
falls over into so many other things, but it doesn't seem warranted for what's coming from it. It seems they made more of a mess.
So since we're talking about how we feel about these changes, we'll go around again. I will start with me this time. So I'll be honest. We played a game with no pushing damage, and it was great when my little 40-point puppet master could just sit there and go attack, attack, yay, attack, attack. I take no damage, attack, attack. You know, like it's there is a part of it that's just blindly fun. That you're just like, yeah, I'm just attacking. I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just attacking. Whenever I get a chance, I'm attacking. At the same time, you know, I go back to that first article, removing strategic options. You know, like you mentioned, it was an option. And I think in a way it was pushing damage was a good way of willpower and all that kind of stuff. A good way of illustrating the strength of a character. You could have someone that could be just as strong, they could hit just as hard, they could fly just as well as Superman, but if they don't ignore pushing damage, then they play completely different than Superman. So now, by everybody all ignoring pushing damage, suddenly everybody, we're gonna have a lot of pieces that are gonna play the same. And if you look at the Wonder Woman set, you see a lot of charge pieces, and a lot of them are gonna play the same. It's gonna be, you know, 11 charge for 3 damage, and this piece 11 charge for 3 damage, and it's gonna be really.
It'll be very blatant to see which one's the better charge piece. And
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking for.
If you don't have the better charge piece, then it's just not the optimal choice.
Yeah, I mean, for the competitive, definitely. So that's what I found. I think if you're just blindly playing the game, it can be fun, but at the same time, I liked the willpower. I liked the Indomitable. I liked the pushing, even though, you know, it did suck at times. I like those options. So that's mine.
I think that the goal of keeping people attacking is a perfectly fine way to look at it. What they're doing is removing the complexity. The thing that I remember of, like, the earliest example of this is there's a Punisher War Machine that released forever ago. I'm sorry, not Punisher War Machine. There's a War Machine that released back in 2019 that had stealth on its second click, and the idea is that you would running shot, then running shot again to push, and then you would land in stealth after you had pushed into it. The thing is that I had to ask, why don't they just have this at the time? It was back in 2017 or something like that this piece was released. It's a thing where I was like, I don't really get it. Okay, I'm just going to have to, like, go forward thinking about this when I'm looking at my team construction on if there's a piece that I can get away with without it. We're doing the same thing, but it just has willpower. Now I'm always going to use the one that just has willpower now. The only times when it isn't is when it's only able to do something that nothing else does. Mr. Oz will always be amazing, and it doesn't need willpower to be amazing because it's doing something that only that piece can do without willpower. Now that it has willpower, it's going to be slightly better because it can TK the object and then TK your character afterwards. But the thing is that piece was already super good because of its specific thing that it could do, not because it didn't have willpower.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
The thing is that pieces not having or not having willpower wasn't making me have less fun. It just made me choose a different piece.
Yeah.
He said the word.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. You want?
I in most facets of this, I just feel it's terrible. I've played the game for so long, and there's things you get used to. There's changes you have to get used to. I recognize all that. But so many strategies you come up with revolve around the plan B of pushing if you have to deal with it. and then you have other opportunities to be able to explore, so you can keep fighting or playing or have a chance of winning. And a big one for me is the Masters of Evil. That was one of my favorite team abilities. There is nothing better than a half-dead Ultron that will not stop attacking until you put it down. Like, this newest Ultron chase was awesome. And I'm sorry, but this Brain Trust decides to give it the old Morlocks team ability. That's incompetence. That is incompetence. I mean, yeah, maybe the Wrecking Crew would get in a mosh and pound on somebody like that, but
Not the Masters of Evil.
there was no reason that they could not have kept that the way it was. And it seems like they wanted to limit the ability of just attacking for the sake of making lesser pieces attack more. And, you know, I understand they're trying things. You got to give them that. But this just, it didn't make any sense. It really didn't. I don't see where this is going to benefit the game on the long term. It seems like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul with this decision.
As far as I'm concerned, the change to taking out pushing damage, I mean, I think it just, in my opinion, I think O'Malley touched on it a little bit. You would just choose different pieces. If there was a piece that was your main attacker, running shot, 11, pulse wave, or penetrating psychic blast, 4 damage, but it didn't have willpower. You're just gonna pick a piece that has the running shot, has the pulse wave or penetrating psychic blast, has the 4 damage, and also has willpower, and so you just pick a different piece. But now if all pushing damage is getting rid of, then it sort of opens up the avenue for more pieces getting some play time. I feel like, at least when I'm building teams. Because I try to look at a piece for its intrinsic value, not whether or not I like it or whether or not, but what can it do for my team? And if I have 2 pieces, one willpower that's doing the same thing and one without willpower that's doing the same thing, I mean, I'm just gonna choose the one with willpower. So adding this layer to it, I feel like it just opens up for me, in my opinion. As far as I think to counter what John was saying, or what was getting touched upon earlier, was that a lot of times you would switch or you would click push damage into a certain thing, and I just really don't feel like that play style is how people play anymore. You just look for the piece that has the stealth on the top click, rather than go through the motions and then have to push onto the stealth. It's
a big hindrance for any piece that doesn't have its best powers and abilities on its first click or on its stop click.
Right.
And the only times that I can think of where that's particularly different is with something like Immortal Hulk, which got the errata, which was a specific piece that required interaction with to get to its clicks that were not its top click.
Right, yeah. Activation clicks being barred, and taken aside and in its own little.
Otherwise, almost every character's who is played competitively, best power is on their top click.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed playing Grail for forever ago, the chase from the Harley Quinn set. If that girl does not get to her last clicks, she is not going to be able to do what she would be best at.
Right.
Because they're not a guaranteed power that I can use. It has to be put onto by someone else.
I'll interject this thought. Perhaps John is coming from, he's, I don't know, 20 years, let's see, 2002, 2000, I don't know. There's
We're
a
almost there.
19.
I was just thinking, perhaps a lot of what John's feelings are coming from a pre-carded era where, we didn't have as easily the ability to just look at the back of the card and see what was coming next. And that pushing, maybe, pushing them was more of a, we didn't know what was going to happen. It could bounce onto anything unless you memorized it. and maybe it was a little bit more of a strategic thing that right now I can look at your card, I can look at anybody's card and be like, yeah, if he pushes he's going to bounce onto that or whatever, and I can see that coming. But if your opponent is pre-carded, your opponent doesn't know that dial, and you know the dial, and you know if I push I'm going to land on stealth, they're going to plan around what they can see. They can't see stealth at the moment, and you're going to push or run shot whatever into hindering stealthy. Suddenly you're stealthy, and their whole strategy was revolving around being able to see you. So it could be something that was more prone in the pre-carded era or even the pre-NECA era, that just for the newer players it just isn't at all, especially with seeing your opponent's card. They know they can just like outwit stealth. Go ahead, push. I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to use it when you bounce onto it.
Well,
the game has changed a lot. So
it's like you said, Matt. That was for me and my playing over this duration. I remember one piece that specifically started with probability control, but when you pushed it, it went to outwit. So on that second attacking turn, you got all your people in there, pushed it finally, and when your opponent was coming back at you, you could outwit something. It was going to have to sit there, but it worked like that. And I think another one right now is like this Wizkids Open Quicksilver. It starts off with solid numbers, but if you wound up having to push it, it goes on to that crazy Perplex. And Perplex is a whole nother thing we'll talk about later, but I loved getting it onto that Perplex click just out of the blue, and they're like, what? Watch me roll these dice and see what happens with this Perplex.
Right.
So I think everybody kind of offered a good perspective there. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the next article. It's called Rules Article 2, Hitting the Bench. Basically, what they're talking about is, they say 48 standard powers is a lot of powers. When you consider all the in-game terms a player needs to understand to play Heroclix, it's a little over 100 terms. We wanted to make this less daunting without eliminating abilities from the game, even though they're kind of eliminating abilities from the game. So what they're doing is, out of the 48 standard powers, I think they said they're taking about 13 of them, and they're gonna bench them. And what that means is, for the next few sets, or whenever they decide to stop it,
Few sets.
It's real.
3 or more.
Hollow promises.
they're gonna take certain powers, and they're just not gonna be in the set. Now they say there's gonna be a few exclusions, like there might be a team ability, some random team ability that can you put that on the ground? Some random team ability that gives you shape change, even though shape change is going to be benched, or something like that. There may be a few little exclusions here. For the most part, these powers will not be printed on dials. For these sets, yes. And then at a certain point, what they're going to do is they're going to bring those powers back, and they're going to bench other powers, another set of powers. And
it might be that the Marvel set that is benched, that comes up next for the X-Men one, that like perplexes back, but maybe what would be a benched one? Mind control.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like mind control isn't involved in the next one for whatever reason.
I think it's going to be a set of bench powers for a few sets, and then it's going to switch to a different set of bench powers for different sets. But what they're benching right now is basically leap, climb, super strength, willpower is changing, earthbound, neutralize, precision strike, pulse wave, battle fury, range combat expert, perplex, shape change, invincible, force blast. I thought there was some kind. Maybe there's close combat expert. Wait, so they bench range combat expert, but not range. Okay, and the reason is, range attackers are inherently stronger than close attackers, so we're gonna bench range combat expert, but keep close combat expert. Perplex is going to be bench, shape change, invincible, force blast, hypersonic speed, and support. So that's about 13 of the 48 powers. And then after a few sets, they're going to bring them back and bench another set of powers. I think later on, which will probably skip the feedback article, they say that in the future they're going to bench less number of powers, because they heard our feedback. So I guess we'll just start with Chris. And how do you feel about the concept of benching powers?
I don't like it. I'm trying to think of words
Being polite.
that would yeah.
How does it affect you as a competitive player?
Well, it just means that I won't be using certain pieces from certain sets because they don't have certain powers. And it feels as though this doesn't seem sustainable. They'll try to create special powers that mimic the abilities of powers that they benched, and it just comes up as either short or what I fear way broken because of its changes to how the powers which have been tried and true and worded in such a way and changed and finally we've got it tuned down now to where it's it works. But special powers that just sort of come up on the fly, they're things that while you might test them within the set themselves. Oh, well, what about this piece from like 3 sets ago that now has this funky interaction with this new special power? And well, you get like I don't know, you get a situation which you don't want. And I just feel like that's where this is gonna go. And I mean, it's really turning me off to purchasing more Heroclix, because as a competitive player, I look at set previews, and I look to see how much of the set that I actually like. And being a competitive player, I look at viable pieces that are good. It might not be the most competitive team, but the piece itself will pull its weight for its points. And I, at the very least, look for that. And it just doesn't seem like when you're taking away these powers that you're going to get the maximum that you can out of set. And it just seems like for this duration, unless this set is being played within itself, this duration will just be weaker pieces. And until the new set of bench powers comes around, which I don't know what they're gonna do now. But what do you bench? Close attacks? I don't think that, because of the inherent range advantage in the game. So what powers do you bench? Again, I mean, it just feels like these are the bench powers that they didn't want to have to deal with, and then they're just gonna bring them back and just let this whole thing go. It just I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way. I don't like it. I just won't be buying any Wonder Woman. That's what that means to me.
What about you, John?
Therein, they have lost a customer. So they've shot themselves in the foot. And you have this palette. You have all these colored powers that you can just put a set together around. And to deny the ability to give, I don't know, Cersei shape change, or Miss Martian that's coming out, a Superman without hypersonic. Hey, I'm willing to look at it. But at some point in time, Clark should have hypersonic and at least super strength. You know, so
I don't know how you're doing a Wonder Woman set without super strength or invincible.
You're taking away the range aspect that these characters should have to deal with in a healthy combat environment, so you can go close combat heavy. And I always like to look at it as you've got Marvel versus DC. DC kind of goes the route of gods. Marvel goes the route of cosmic pieces. This would have been a DC iteration to do some god level, like the chases from the Harlequin set, to put some brawlers out there that could go after some of the bigger Marvel pieces. We've gotten some really good ones that are powerful in the Marvel sets lately. The Dooms are awesome. But when you pigeonhole this much of what a combat dial could have on it, just for the sake of riding the pine. Riding the pine.
What does that mean?
Benched. This makes no sense
for benching.
To bench something. If you've got a quality player, he's in the game fighting for you, and now he's sitting on the bench because we just don't want to represent these powers. And I mean, how can you have a Superman without super strength? How can you have these Wonder Woman pieces without invincible? I mean,
Flash with a hypersonic.
I was going to let you. That is all you meant. Please, please have at it when it's your turn. But it's so short-sighted. It really is. You're taking something, and once again, maybe this is the simplification of the game that I really do not like, because how are you going to be able to see the whole encompassment of what that PAC represents when you're taking powers out? And then, like Chris just said, there are people that are going to completely look over the set because it doesn't have the powers that they want to play on the pieces they enjoy. And then, like O'Malley here, which God bless him, this is his one DC set of the year, Wizkids, and y'all have screwed it up royally, and he is still supporting you guys. But this was his. Oh man! So O'Malley,
This is the last two sets of DC we've had have been an animated universe, and I am ready to get back out of it, because while there are pieces in the animated universe I enjoyed playing, I'm ready to get back to this is Hades, this is Wonder Woman, this is Green Lantern, this is not an iteration of Amazo, this is DC's Amazo. And while I can appreciate that we are getting pieces then that are, hey, this is Cersei, this is this that we haven't gotten forever. And even though that there are versions of, like, this is a piece that we got a while ago, but we're getting a new version of with Hades, I'm super excited to see what it is. But the fact that they are limiting the types of powers and abilities that each one of those characters can come to the playing field with is really upsetting, for the purposes of, hey, if I want a Flash, it should have this. If I want to go more specific into this set, there are characters like Ares who should have Invincible. There are characters who are like the chases that we're getting in this set with the Shazam, who, instead of having Pulse Wave on that switch click, is getting a 3 penetrating damage to all opposing characters. They are getting things that are supposed to be alterations of him, when this Shazam should have Pulse Wave. Or King Shazam. And then they are doing things that are not good for these pieces, that now that we're outside of the DC animated universe, we're limiting the powers that those characters can be built with. That are not just, we're going to get other Supermen, we're going to get other Flashes. We will not get another Hades or a lot of these other Amazonians for a long time.
Yeah.
And the fact that this set means that these are the Wonder Woman characters means that we're getting a less colored palette is really upsetting, because it means that I was really excited the moment when we saw a gorilla. I don't know the next time we're going to get a Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah.
It's going to be a few sets. That is like, this is a Gorilla Grodd, not the Super Friends Gorilla Grodd.
Right.
Like,
yeah, you gotta get right with Grodd.
but that's the thing, is that the fact that this game is now saying that, like, these are the characters that we're only going to get so many of. The next DC set, we might have a Flash, and it might have Hypersonic. But the fact that there are characters in here now that we're only getting once every however many years, and they're being painted with a less colored palette, is the most upsetting part for this.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like overall, this is probably my least favorite change of just everything. It's about the one thing I just cannot get on the board with for any reason. I just feel it's a horrible idea. Like John described, it takes away options of describing these characters. It's like saying, we're going to have a Spider-Man, but this Spider-Man doesn't climb walls. He's still Spider-Man. He just doesn't climb walls. And this is the Hulk, but he can't pick up objects. He's just green, but he's still the Hulk. It's like, how do you represent these characters without certain powers? And again, I'm the fun player, so I'm all about the characters. I'm all about, I need that Green Lantern, I need that Wonder Woman, or maybe not Wonder Woman as much, but I need that Green Lantern, I need that Flash. And then it's like, we're gonna give Flash charge, then charge again, and it's like, but that's not the same thing, because charge is still affected under the new rules of plasticity, while hypersonic isn't.
He has improved movement characters.
Okay, whatever. Whatever.
I'm just
Still-
saying for the
It's
purposes
still,
of
still though, that seems like a lot of workaround.
yeah, it is.
When they
For-
could have
It
just
is.
given him hypersonic with 2
Right.
attacks.
Yeah. So I mean,
Right.
that's my biggest issue is representing the characters. I think they say I can't remember. It's in a certain article where they say some kind of analogy of not every piece is gonna feel like it's straight from the pages of a comic book, but we're trying to build an overall stronger superhero game. And I feel like the second they start removing themselves from the comic book characters is the second the whole reason I got into the game is lost, because I wanted to play my Green Lanterns. I wanted to play the Fantastic Four. But if we're moving away from those characters into some just generic bruiser, generic shooter, then my interest is, I mean, the gameplay is still fun, but I'm going to be looking for those characters in another way, whether it's another game, another video game, whatever. And that's how it's affecting me, basically. I think it's horrible idea. I think in 2022, I'm just going to say it, I don't think they're going to be benching powers anymore. I think they've gotten enough feedback, and I think it's a horrible idea. Like Chris said, what do you bench next? I mean, you just be like, well, we're gonna have sets without outwit, like that. That's just gonna that's gonna make the game so much more fun.
Maybe this is like the cosmic
Battle
mulligan,
Cruiser
and like
Heroclix.
April Fools will come around and they'll be like, "Oh, we're just messing with you."
I don't know, but okay, so
This whole rule book would be a whole elaborate April Fool's joke.
all right, so
We're not that lucky.
the 2.5 feedback is just talking about they're gonna add ways to add pushing damage on the characters. They've heard from the bench powers. They're gonna bench lesser powers. That's about it. We're not even gonna talk about that one. Let's
they
see.
were wrong, and then they tried to say they weren't.
Yes. Less is more.
Backtrack, did they?
Less is more is basically. I think we will talk about this, but they're simplifying powers. As we've seen the power ability cards, they're trying to get those powers to be like one sentence long for the most part.
I don't think that's a realistically achievable goal.
Yeah,
I don't think that should be the goal. I think the goal should be trying to be able to explain it in a concise but specific manner, and it's shouldn't be the goal to be make it as short as possible.
Yeah.
It should
Well,
should
exact
be-
wording. That's a new one they came up with.
What's upsetting about it is that one of the things that I thought was mentioned on here is pulse wave. Am I remembering that right?
From this article,
Or is that not mentioned?
not on this article. No.
I think
That's
pulse
the
wave was
PAC.
the greatest. When we looked at the PAC and we see the rewording that they did for things like pulse wave, it led to a lot of questions from a lot of players going, is this going this way? And they used what would see with 1+ rather than saying more than one.
Yeah.
And if you use the phrase more than one, it might tick it down that line a few more words. I don't know if they're counting that specifically, but because that change was done for the wording of Pulse Wave, all these questions got brought up from the way that Pulse Wave is going to work with the new rule change.
Well, we still don't know about that, but yeah, definitely. Let's see. We need to talk about theme teams.
Real quick,
can we
I'm
go
gonna
back to
end
Can we go back to the rules 3?
The TK was bad because Magneto can't throw an object.
Yeah, I mean telekinesis is totally a power that you can use offensively.
Yeah,
And the ability to just use it as placement and stuff like that is a total
it's
a total slap in the face to anybody who has telekinesis in the comics.
It feels like it's a place to, in the way that if we were looking at meta play, how is it used most frequently? Yes, placing objects, placing characters.
Right.
But if we're looking at it in the way of this character is a character who should be able to take an object and then throw it at you, this is the way that it should be working now. And the fact that they don't have it that way is the way that they're just like, well, it's still going to have the thing that it seems like is the only way that meta players have been using it. Like, and why? Magneto should have a TK that he's able to throw an object into someone.
Yeah.
Or you've got somebody that's half dead and it's low point figure, but it's sitting on TK.
Now,
it can at least fling an object, a heavy, and hit somebody for 3, and you have a chance of staying in the fight.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I will say this. There are some there are some benefits. For example, like the change to leap climb. I think that's been a long time coming.
Making it
Uh,
passive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Making
Yeah.
it so that way it just grants you these abilities. So that way, if you have additional movement abilities, you can then use them in conjunction with those. And while there were, there's ways to just, completely mitigate leap climb as a power in and of itself, just being,
Yeah.
just giving improved movement right on the card.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still nice to be able to also have that as an option, so that way these characters can then be given it passively and still still be able to act as though they had it. And so
I'll say this is to perplex being messed with. How many times did you perplex down somebody's or attack or defense?
Or damage.
Or exactly.
If you
and
perplex down someone's damage and you know you have a reducer for it and you
Yeah.
know they can't do
you've
damage,
nullified their entire piece.
Yeah.
there's a valid reason to be able to perplex down your only character that can be mind controlled's damage, so that way when they would be attacking they can't deal any damage to the people who are avoided of mind control. Like if you have characters who are like stealth or something else, and then you know you're one character that could be mind controlled, you just say they perplex down their damage and now they're not a problem. Like
Right.
there's a valid use for that.
yeah, it doesn't leave you vulnerable.
I think the only reason why they changed perplex, close combat expert, and range combat expert is a perceived balancing thing, because the answer was, well, you always take perplex. You always, always, always take perplex. There's no reason why you should ever build a team if you have 30 points that you would go for an empower piece, an enhancement piece, or any piece with that if you were able to put in a perplex piece.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why it is, but that doesn't make it like it's a balancing issue. But the other thing is it doesn't change complexity, because perplex might be the most basic power, period. Modify a combat value plus or minus 1. And that is a thing that is super easy. The only reason it got adjusted is because of a balancing thing that they're trying to adjust.
Think about Alex Wilder, and you have him set across from you. Prob, outwit, perplex. You're almost always going to pick outwit, because unless you're power cosmic, you don't want something getting turned off. And then it's a toss-up between prob or perplex. And, that's one of those things. It's not affecting damage. I'm picking prob. So.
Yeah. Anybody feel passionate about the range combat expert, close combat expert change? I know personally, again, going back to strategic options, it's taken away an option there where you could go, well, I can already see you, so I don't need to move. I'm gonna go all into damage or all into attack and get some advantage. So that's
I think it's specific wording that it doesn't require the capital close or capital range is a thing that I can appreciate with it, in that I could have a piece that I give hypersonic to that has close combat expert and then being able to use it.
Yeah.
What I think is the loss from close combat expert and range combat expert is the inability to be able to pick the +2 options.
Yeah.
I think that it's worded now that it can be used more in a way that I will look for pieces that have it, or I might be more inclined to give someone a power gem. But the thing is that since that power is not able to give anyone a +2, I think it's a real loss. I think its wording changes are fine. I think the loss of the +2 is the only thing that is like, I wish we were able to keep that.
Any other thoughts before we move on? Okay, so we're moving on to rules, Article 4, theme teams. Basically, what Wizkids was talking about was they're kind of trying to simplify the theme team process, where in the past there was named keyword theme teams and generic keyword theme teams and bonuses for different ones that kind of varied. And I don't really know how they really say it, but they just say they're going to try to simplify it, make it easier by eliminating the differences between named and generic theme teams. The initiative bonus is going to be limited so that, if your opponent has 20 pieces of a theme team, they're not going to get a plus 20. The most they can get is plus 3 more than the opponent so that, you still have a chance to outroll them. The theme team probability control is it's going to be limited to maximum of 3 instead of a maximum of 5. But now it's just like probability control. You don't get an action token when you use it, all that kind of stuff. And same kind of rule where you must have 0 or 1 action tokens. Oh no, that's the old one. Let's see.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just prob.
Yeah, it's just prob. It's just prob now. No extra. I guess no extra rules on that kind of stuff. A single figure will count as a single person theme team, so I guess they'll get 1 use of prob that game. Generic and name keywords are going to have the same, they're going to be the same for the most part, even though, look different on the card.
Mm-hmm.
Initiative, theme team, probability control. Certain things are getting errated in the past. I don't think we really need to talk about that. But so on the topic of theme team, I guess we'll start with Chris. My questions are: Do you like the new design of theme teams, initiative bonus, stuff like that? Do you think it was warranted? And what are your overall thoughts on the changes?
So, first off, I'll start with something that I do like. I really enjoy the idea of getting an additional benefit when making a theme team, because you have to sacrifice certain things to be, certain team building options to be able to create a theme team. So the idea that you're getting this additional bonus, it really sort of pays off that this team has synergy sort of feel, and having to token up a character, while it did have a purpose as far as like the game goes, and in pacing things out. It was a cost to having to do this extra ability that you didn't necessarily get with naturally. And so I think with the change of the game going into a more fast-paced scenario where you have more figures that are acting, turn after turn, I think the need to be able to still continue movement or still do an action as far as a single character is concerned, I think is more important now after the changes. And so this change to theme team probability control, having just prob, just give them prob. Also with the change of limitation to theme team probs being 3, also gives a nice change as well. It's also it gives it a balance. So that being said, me enjoying that change, I feel like their change to initiative bonus was a little bit harsh. I feel like they were paying just a bit too much attention to meta teams and such, and tournament reports and things of that nature. While it is fair to have a limitation on it, I think that they went just a little bit too harsh. Maybe having the cap be at 5, say, or but I feel like 3 just doesn't quite cut it. It doesn't give you necessarily the advantage that you're looking for. You want to, at least from my opinion, if I'm building certain teams that require a map bonus, or that require a certain map to play, let's say, for example, I was using an Atlantis team, and I really needed to play on water. If I'm not on water, I mean, that completely changes out, the way that I'm playing that team, and I'm trying to have to play pieces that aren't as good when they're not in that terrain. And I just feel like it just hampers a little bit, and I feel like they just hit it a little too hard. If I were to suggest a change to that, it would just be, say, 5, but that's just a number I'm just getting off the top of my head. But yeah, that's what I have to say about this article.
Okay, about theme team initiative bonus. What do you think, John?
So ages ago, when they did away with generic having theme PC, there's like PD pieces that outside of the question, maybe 1 or 2 others, will not have probability control. So a police force was up a creek. You look at Nick Fury on a soldier team. He's about the only soldier that could do the PC. So I'm looking at some of that worked in the right direction of being able to, balancing that between named and generic. But let's face it, it's a lot easier to do generic than it is to do named in some instances. So I feel like taking away the creativity, calling it a balance, isn't necessarily right when there should have been pros and cons for figuring out each force. And I'm not saying an exact limitation, but if you can make a generic cop force work, then maybe there should be something. And that could have been incorporated into captain and sidekick or something. But where we're going with how this goes, Chris right here had this awesome future Dr. Fate, Batman, Amanda Waller stuff going. And, what his bonus was on counting as having the map to make the Batman work is now completely off the table. And what's the point in putting a force together when it's either, you need the map, or however this goes, you're reliant. A good example would be Black Panther and the Wakanda obscuring map, so there's benefits. I mean, I see why they did it, but once again, I feel like they're heavy-handed in how they make these decisions, and it's really, if you're an old guard player and you've become acquainted with the combat dial and how these things come and go, it's kind of like you're being punished. You're not bringing up the lesser player that's a novice and not advanced to be able to learn. You're pulling down the people that know the intricacies and can figure out what's coming and going with the game. And it is leveling the playing field, but it's also alienating the people that got them here. So, I mean, I'm all about teaching new players how to play, being polite, making sure they understand the rules and things along those lines, but you can't skew things and think all of a sudden it's just going to bust out a new crop of gamers.
What was that phrase that you like to use? You can't rob Peter to
pay Paul.
Did you say rub Peter? You can't rub Peter?
Rob Peter. It's not that type of video. It's not that type of video.
How do you feel about these issues?
You gotta pay extra.
I'm generally pretty positive on all of these changes associated with it. The thing that's weird about this is that it is generally better. It equals out the difference between a named theme team and an unnamed theme team in a way that if S.H.I.E.L.D. is working together, it should probably work better together than just some animals that would then be able to work together, right? I think the most that we're seeing is that there are maps that we are getting now that are +0 for named theme teams that only work with specific named theme teams. And I feel like we might see that going forward now, where in the I don't know if it's going to be in the Wonder Woman set, but in the next X-Men set, we're going to probably see if you're part of an X-Men team +0, and then you get the map bonus for that theme team.
Yeah, I can see that as being a possibility, a nice direction where that could go. I'm
not particularly positive on that. Maybe if it's a named theme team, they get the 5, and if it's a generic theme team, they get the 3 probability controls. I think would be a way to show that there is a difference between S.H.I.E.L.D. teaming up and a group of animals or people who are cosmic teaming up. I think that that's probably the only part of this that I'm particularly not fond of. I think the fact that probability control now is just, or a theme team prob is just probability control, is just nice and simple, and it doesn't seem, it's better for every piece, and it's just simpler. It's just a regular buff to pretty much everyone. I'm pretty fine with it.
I gotta add something because
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that there's not a consequence of having to pull the fat out of the fryer and save the day with a theme PC. Like a lot of times I would set up a force knowing that if I missed an attack, there was in a position somebody that could take a token to be able to do the theme PC. And then by taking that push or something happening to that figure, I'd have another option once I click that figure. So maybe they'd go from outwit to perplex and I could bump a defense before I turn the board over. And these are just the little parts of it that are all just being stripped away. And I'll just say it like this, you know, we're Western North Carolina and people, they make moonshine around here. And when you make moonshine, it's all this stuff that goes in the still. And what comes out has flavor, taste, what have you. But they are distilling this game down so far right now. There's not a lot of flavor left in the product. And it's kind of scary. I mean, it's a weird analogy, but it's still kind of how I feel that you've got all these ingredients that made something more than the sum of the parts, and they're stripping away a lot of the stuff that made it, you know, that enticing, that fun, that intricate, you know. So just an opinion.
So,
Yeah, you know, I gotta hand it to you. I didn't know where you were going
Yeah.
with that.
Full circle.
But that
kinda
landed.
worked.
That
It
landed.
kinda worked. It
Yeah,
kinda
I'll say that landed for sure.
okay. So my thoughts on it is I'm a huge fun player. I'm a huge theme team player. I don't know when the last time I haven't played a theme team was. I mean, I literally cannot remember it. And almost all my theme teams are named theme teams because I'm just like Justice League, Avengers, you know, Fantastic Four, woo, you know, Teen Titans, you know, if I have enough pieces. So anything that affects theme teams definitely affects me personally. I can understand. I've talked to John so many times, and he's been like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this soldier team without Prob. I don't know how I'm gonna do this mystical team, and somehow Doctor Strange don't have Prob or something. I don't know how it's gonna work, you know. So I know for him, it's like a huge buff to like, yes, I finally have Prob. You know, I don't have to worry about it. At the same exact time, again, from what O'Malley said, you know, I'm like, Justice League should be working better than a pile of animals, and there should be some inherent benefit. Now, it says in this article, it says at some point they're going to try to keep incorporating big bonuses for name theme teams, and I think that's fine, but it needs to be so clear. It needs to be like this we've seen most of this Wonder Woman set. And has anybody noticed anything that's been like, if you're on a Justice League theme team, you get this, or if you're on a Secret Six theme team, you're not. I haven't seen any pieces in the set that do that.
Secret Six gets them.
Well,
The only one that I can think of is Animal for Grodd and Wonder Woman, or Amazonian for Hippolyta.
Yeah. So I mean,
So they have it, like it.
for
there.
Amazons, yeah, Amazon. But like even in the Fantastic, even a Future Foundation set, what was the best they came up with? You can re-roll a 4. Like what's the big like if I'm making a really strong scientist theme, am I gonna go, oh, but I really want to play Future Foundation because I need to re-roll the 4 ability?
I would say for Future Foundation, the biggest one is Lavariat. Is Lavariat having the ability for the map control to be like, do I want to build Cosmic or do I want to build Ruler? Hey, instead of building Ruler, I could build Lavariat, and then be able to end up getting the map bonus for 0.
Okay, then you're talking about the map bonus. I'm
talking about
Morgan
that's
Le
the
Fay
biggest one for
and
Fantastic
Avengers
Four.
to Latveria.
Yeah, Avengers Latveria. The Conqueror can do Cosmic. Doom the Conqueror can do Cosmic.
Future.
Somebody else. Past.
Cosmic
Future past.
So, I mean, but like,
And they all become Latveria.
yeah, exactly.
The thing is that I think the thing for building a named theme team in Future Foundation was not a question of, do I want to build this or Fantastic Four? It felt weirdly more, do I want to build Ruler or do I want to build Latveria? That was how it felt to me. And I don't know if that's what you want in a Fantastic Four set for that to be the choice, but that was where that choice landed for me.
One thing that just entered my head, I mean, I know it would complicate things, but I remember the alternate team abilities where if you had a name theme team or something like that, you had an additional effect on the team ability. At least that would
sure.
be, at least that would be something on top of
Oh yeah,
just
could
like
see
a
that.
generic or a name theme team or something.
Like
Days
if-
of
like if you're-
Thunderbolt.
that would be nice.
Like if it was
Yeah.
protected or something like that, if it gave you a power, like your Batman became protected stealth or
No,
something
no,
like that.
it was confusing and a bit complicated to have each character that had the keyword pay points for the
Yeah,
thing. Like if you
yeah,
could just pay
sure.
a flat points,
Yeah,
your team, that you can only get if you have a X name theme team,
Mhm.
and then you pay extra points for, and then now all your team members can use this additional bonus.
I think I would just remove the whole point requirement and just put a character requirement. You got to have 5 pieces with Justice League team ability to do this, and then if you can pull that off, I mean, there's some ways to pull that
Well,
off. You
there's
can be
ways
like
to do it, like the team
Doctor
up
Fate,
cards,
Doctor Fate, Doctor Fate,
or like the
but
new Dooms we got in
Fantastic
the
Four.
Fantastic Four set, where you pay the 5 to 10 points, and then you got Doombots that spawn upon outwit prob.
Right.
Yeah.
There's ways that this could be incorporated. They've already used them, so.
But those are my thoughts. I would still like to see more visual ways that name theme teams are getting bonuses over generic theme teams. I'm fine with the whole probability control just being simple now.
Right. But I get what you're saying in the sense that just at the very basis of it, and a group of animals, just because they're animals, shouldn't be as cohesive as Shield members. For that was a good
Sure,
example.
yeah.
Y'all badmouth and Rocket and Cosmo. Or
That would
But,
technically be a
but it's-
Guardians of the Galaxy thing.
But it's true though. It's true though, and that is warranted. That is warranted.
Spider Ham in there.
I think the initiative bonus as a fun player, I'm fine with it. I've been on the opposite side of these colossal retaliators that are 10, 15 points. And just like the article says, plus 10 to a mystical, plus 10 to a monster. I think, honestly, like, I mean, if they're even gonna even say like animals and shield are equal, then why even have an initiative bonus? Just like roll, and then incorporate like if you play a Laveria theme team, you get a +3 to your roll. It'd be on the map or something. So that's the map I'm playing. And if I'm playing this map and it's a Laveria theme team, then I get a +3 to my initiative roll. So it's like not even involved in the initiative bonus.
Map is decided after initiative, so I don't know.
Well, it'd be included on your force, right? The map is on your force, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, then okay. Yeah, I could see that.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, when we're writing down the tournament things, you have to list what map.
Because you have like a select 3 maps or something like that. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
And I don't know. That's just a wild idea that popped in my head. But I'm okay with everything, other than I wish there was more visible advantages for name things. Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, we're moving on to the next one. Moving on. Rules number 5, from a distance. So this one mostly we're talking about how. Okay. Well, we're gonna go part by part. Okay, so hold on to just like your feelings
All
about
the
one
feelings.
thing.
Just
Hold
keep
on
them
to your butt.
The first thing they talked about was bolts and targeting, and how like, bolts have been used for range attacks. Why don't we use bolts for close attacks? And then it talks about hindering terrain. Hold. Talk about hindering terrain. They're gonna make it so it don't slow you down anymore, and you don't stop. And hold, and then knockback. Oh yeah, that's another one. It's like hold or.
The idea that you wanted to like fast track through these ones, I found wild.
Well,
when we were talking
okay.
about that.
Well, the
Okay.
bolts not so much. The rest of it, yeah.
The rest
Okay.
of it
Can
is
of worms.
Yeah, okay, so we got 3 main things. Bolt targeting, hindering terrain, where I think we all know the changes. They're going to make it so it's still hindering for line of fire, but not for movement. And that's the main thing now. For the knockback, they're removing knockback damage altogether. And I guess if you knock them back in any way, it is up to 3. Up to 3 squares away from the target, even though Force Blast now says knock them back 3 squares. So I don't know how that's gonna work.
Yeah, they word it differently here than they do in the actual rule book. I think in the actual rule book, I think it just specifically says 3 squares rather than up to 3.
So I mean, it says that the comprehensive rule book will go further into the explaining the nuance of a way, but
so this is a mention of a comprehensive rule book.
We don't have that. We don't have that.
We don't have that yet.
We don't have the comprehensive rule book.
They didn't even mention in any other place that there was going to be a comprehensive
we
rule book.
don't know about that stuff. Okay.
Rather,
Okay.
it's just
Like the
a
Yeti
side mention.
Or
in-
the Loch Ness Monster.
Okay.
I'll believe
Ah!
it when I
Okay.
see it.
Ah!
Okay.
And
Okay.
it probably won't be comprehensive.
Okay. So I'm gonna start with
Okay.
me this
I
time
agree.
around, talking about the bolts targeting, the hindering terrain, and the knockback. So the bolts targeting thing, I'm gonna be quick. I like close bolts. I think that's a cool mechanic. I think it will add more interesting combinations of powers, and I don't think it really took away from anything to add something new. So I think that's a net positive for the game. The hindering terrain thing makes no flipping sense. Because even in the new rule book they came out with, they say hindering terrain is terrain that is hard to traverse, and then they say, oh,
That is kind of an interesting point to pick out. It's like, why say that, but then
yeah.
not have any mention to.
So,
Incompetence. It's
Okay.
incompetent.
I hear you. So my thing is like I really like using smoke cloud as a way to like put up a not a barrier but just like a hindrance of being like you're gonna stop if you come after me, or if you do come into my smoke cloud you're gonna get the -1. At least from there I could manipulate the field a little bit more and control things. Now they'll still get the -1, but like if I'm hiding in a big thing as hindering, they can just run straight up to me and punch me. Or if they want to outwit me with the new outwit rules, they can run straight up to me and then outwit me. And I don't like that. I would have been good with like if the outwit change stayed the same, but it was harder to get to me in the hindering. But with both easier to get to me in the hindering and they can outwit me right next to me, I don't like that. I guess it doesn't mention water terrain. Is water terrain in future article? I don't think so.
They talk
about it because they talk about the changes to targeting by 4. So they talk about it in another one.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're water and got dolphin,
Okay.
you gotta be within a certain range.
Okay, we'll talk about water later, but that's how I feel about hindering. I don't like the change at all. I don't really think it makes a lot of sense either. And then the whole like, well, we're gonna remove obscuring because now it's redundant. Well, you made it redundant by making hindering the same thing as obscuring. If you wanted hindering to be less powerful, just print less on a map.
You're saying you solved a problem that you caused.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be a problem.
And then
let's go back to pushing damage on a problem they caused. I mean, it's 3 erratas to that because they're not stopping.
So knockback, I don't like knockback. I've been a person that's been like if I may not have the strongest pieces, but maybe there's a unique way of playing them that I could still hurt them if I do something. And now it's just a strategic option taken away from me. You can't, if you knock J. Jonah Jameson off a 3-story building, he just like flops on the ground and just says, "Do it again." It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably okay if weird about the whole knockback 3. At least it means like even if I I guess you don't even have to deal damage. You just, if you have the knockback effect, you just knock them back 3. So that in my way, I think could be more interesting because you could have someone that could be a really weak piece that can't actually deal any damage. But as long as they can hit you, they can knock you back. And that would have been nice by itself, but now it's like, why am I knocking you back? Unless I can knock you towards my team so I can hit you easier, there's really not a whole lot of reason to knock people back anymore.
The closest is like achieving breakaway from a hypersonic afterwards, especially with the reduction to hypersonic.
Or if they're like next to a mastermind piece and you're trying to separate them so that you can hit the mastermind piece without the mastermind.
Or you could knock them back next to a poison piece and then activate poison.
That's true too. I mean, there are some very niche still effects, but I feel like knocking off the elevation, knocking into a wall, there were some real strategic options that were just taken away. But I'm gonna pass it on to O'Malley.
Cool. Lightning bolts are fun. I like that. I think that's a cool thing that they did. If we want to talk about a real, just WizKids having just a wackadoo tone with this, if you want to scroll down, and I want to highlight a specific phrasing in
Sure.
the hindering terrain format,
Okay, yeah.
is where they mention Jimmy Olsen. A
Did
particular,
I mention
it
Jimmy?
wouldn't even slow down a most.
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
It wouldn't even slow down a most athletic civilian like Jimmy Olsen in tense situation. You know what's fun about Jimmy Olsen? He's affable. And the fact that he kind of like fumbles his way through things and isn't perfect is a part of the appeal of a character like Jimmy Olsen. It's perfectly fine to have characters that aren't good at things in the way that, hey, Jimmy Olsen is a weird dude who just kind of might get tripped up on some things. And if they're not a weird dude who is like a ninja, give him improved movement hindering. Like, you have tools that you had already made, so that way if it doesn't make sense for a character to be tripped up by hindering terrain, you would then give them hindering movement. So there were flashes that are good, are already had improved movement hindering. There's a thing about these characters generally being given the thing, but the idea that there are characters who are just like aren't particularly amazing. I'm totally fine with the idea of a doctor being tripped up once they enter a fear gas by Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Like, I'm totally fine with that. The idea that there are characters who like aren't good is like the goons that Batman beats up. Like, it's a quintessential thing that if you have characters that you wanted to have this power to be able to avoid the hindering terrain, you already have a tool which is improved movement hindering to give them, and then you just decided
they had two. They even had obscuring terrain.
where like the way that they're just removing that is just it's just wrong. And then the fact that they say that like you could just print more obscuring terrain. Like, the thing is that if it's a bench, bench that you were saying it doesn't make sense to trip up a person like Jimmy Olsen, make the bench obscuring terrain. Yeah. It doesn't have to be hindering terrain if it's just a bench then. If it's a bush, then keep it printed hindering terrain. And if it's a bench, make it obscuring terrain. But the fact that they end up having it be where it's like, oh, all of a sudden it doesn't make sense to have this thing be this and this thing be this, when you're like, but you have tools that would allow you to make it so that this is more continuity and this is also more continuity, and you just aren't using either of the tools that you previously had, and you're just
removing them.
It's bad.
Ignorance.
Knockback is whatever. Being dropped off of an elevated, sure, you should still take damage, but like, you also couldn't mind control off the people off of that. I'll chalk it up to that and whatever. This one's the hindering terrain part is the most upsetting part about all of this stuff, I feel.
Okay, John, how do you feel about this stuff?
Bolts I'm cool with, but like O'Malley just he brought it full circle. This hindering thing's incompetence. I mean, it is bad game design, and it doesn't make sense for where they make this claim. We don't want this game to represent what you see in the comics or the cartoons on the movie. We want these figures to interact a certain way. This makes no sense. You already had the tools to allow an interaction the way you thought it should be or how you wanted to structure it. Why we would take hindering? I mean, how many times when Sidestep first came out, Sidestep became the jam because you could sidestep out of hindering and then get your full speed charge.
Yeah.
You know, these were things that you had to learn.
That's why certain pieces started coming out with Sidestep CCE and Sidestep RCE, is because people started to realize, or the designers, I believe, started to realize, well, pieces that are being played have the Sidestep and the CCE, or the Sidestep and the RCE, and now they're able to utilize this little stuff to their full potential.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, a perfect example of all this is, you know, things that are in hindering usually get positioned there for a strategic reason. Now you're taking that part of the strategy out of the game. You're stripping away like an integral facet of why hindering was important. Okay, great, line of fire. But now you can position somebody next to somebody in hindering and get an outwit. I see why they did it. It doesn't mean I agree with it. You know, because they're lessening what this hindering represents for a team that knows how to use it. Or so like Batman Ally, that they're taking a hit from this thing, you know. And I mean, you can't give me a good validation why this makes sense in the eyes of somebody that's played this game for any duration or figured out what a bonus that hindering can be. You know, and then there's other pieces out there right now. There's these new Black Widows we got where one specifically says if she's in hindering, her and adjacent allies can't be targeted. Well, how's that going to go? You know, because now an outwit piece can go next to one of them and until they errat that. So they keep pulling on this thread that's going to make them have to make more adaptations or changes or errata instead of just being concise and figuring out a better way to use improved movement, hindering, or improved targeting, or what they wanted to get at by messing up this terrain thing. Moving to knockback, I will never forget when a buddy of mine used a flurry knockback combination to kill a dupe in a big tournament.
Yeah.
And dupe
One
was
shot.
the piece
Well,
at the time.
One shot.
But you had stop clicks down the dial of a figure.
It took one click at a time, and it had 4 clicks away. Yeah.
And, you know, there was a point in knockback, like Matt alluded to earlier. There's pieces that just aren't going to have the teeth that others do when you build a certain team with a certain strategy or a certain theme. And to take away knockback, Magneto and his magnetic bubble and being able to TK an object, having a knockback factor, a character like that has just been stripped down to nothing because now, you know, you can't get the damage for into the wall or off the roof. And
Right.
you know, you're taking away these facets of the game that made it a whole more, you know, it had a richer experience to it. And it's just, you can't validate these removals. I mean, you just can't. It doesn't make sense. So I'm scratching my head.
All right, so I'm gonna go in a different direction.
All right.
Knockback. I think the change to knockback, again, it was too much. I think having it limited at 3 was cool. That's fine. Taking away damage is ridiculously dumb. I think they already had a solution by just, you know, reducers. Reducers are a thing. If you're tough enough to have a reducer, then you're tough enough to shrug off damage.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, just the inability for a character to be knocked off a roof and not take damage just seems illogical. I don't get it. I don't get it. That being said, bolts, great. That's fantastic. It gives new life to a part of the game that, you know, it had its mold, and you either had more bolts if you had like incapacitate, or if you were a heavy mind control, right? But it just fit a mold, and so now with this change, it broadens that and allows characters that say have multiple arms to have 0 range and bolts, 3 bolts.
Your doppelganger, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it takes a facet of the game and it broadens it. So I mean, that in and of itself, I love it. Absolutely great. As far as how they talked about that, extremely frustrating. From a rules perspective, I didn't know for the longest time whether or not the damage would split up or if it was just gonna make close attacks just inherently better, because now you just instead of attacking one person and, you know, having to deal them damage, you can now attack people that were, you know, both next to you, and now they both took your damage. So clarifications, really important, but I mean, that could be said for the whole dump of articles. Hindering terrain. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But I'm just going to reiterate the fact that WizKids already had a solution. Obscuring terrain, print more of it. Simple. Print more of obscuring terrain. Print less improved targeting hindering. If you're going to do this change to Outwit, in the sense that it makes sense, I feel, from a logical perspective, when you're in the same shadow as Batman, I mean, it's kind of hard, like, for him to still be hidden. Like, I don't, so if you're right up on him, you should be able to see. You should. I feel. So for that change to be there, which I agree with, I feel like you also kind of need a benefit for stealth again, because it's taking a hit. So if stealth is still going to be stealth, you need to do something about that. So printing less of improved targeting hindering would do something like that. Making so that way, just because a character is a sharpshooter doesn't mean that they can necessarily see through hindering. Something along the lines of, for an example, like God Doom. Why does he ignore hindering?
He's God Doom.
Omnipotent. You know what I mean? Like,
I understand that in the way that, like, why would he be like God? Is that why? Is it God?
And so just a for example.
Who are you to question Doom?
But just if you're going to hamper power, there's just different ways to go about this, and I feel like it's obvious, and it feels like that there's some ulterior motive, and I don't know. It just it feels dumb. But they've got some good things with the bolts, so
let's look at it this way, guys. How many times can we count on a hand that we've seen stuff we don't like versus stuff we do like? And
well,
two things that are good versus 5 things so far we're kind of questionable on, or just straight out don't like.
There's more to talk about, though.
That's my point.
That's a good
Let's keep
segue,
a tally.
John.
Let's keep a tally.
That's a good
A
segue.
mental tally. Maybe an editing counter. or
Maybe
whatever,
that's
but,
something
like,
to have, like, over
an
an
editing
counter.
counter.
Let's chalk up another feels bad.
I can, like, in editing, like,
feels
put
bad?
like a
Oh,
plus one minus
Feels
one.
Feels bad moments is just the
Yeah,
thing
right,
for it. Sure.
Okay, let's move on to Rule 6. It's a combo. So what this was talking about was basically like running shot, hypersonic speed, and charge, and its ability to combine and combo with other attack powers and some damage powers, and how throughout the years it's kind of been, questionable. Does this combo with this? Can I do this, this, and this at the same time? And all that kind of stuff. And they're trying to streamline it, try to simplify it so that some things are just attack replacements, some things are attack improvements, and some things are just like power actions. And the way they combine, and we kind of know some of the combinations because we have the new power ability card now. It was not, all the powers were not mentioned here, so at the time of the article we did not know exactly how everything combined, but we do now. I mean, I can't really go over how everything combines, but I think we have a good idea. So if you want to
knowing the knowledge that we know now,
Yeah.
going forward, talking about this article,
yeah.
that we'll do that from that perspective.
So,
absolutely.
Chris, how do you feel about the simplifying of the combinations of these powers? Do you think it was warranted? Do you like the new combinations? And was there anything you wish they would have adjusted?
So, my opinion, I like this. This isn't simplifying the game, though. This isn't simplifying the game. More combos means more things to learn and figure out. And I mean, as someone who learned the game, I learned the initial intricacies: movement, attacking, rolling dice, and then later on through practice I learned the combos. I don't see how that's gonna change with this. It's gonna take an additional I just don't see, it's just antithesis to what their goal was. If that's their goal, then why have more combos? You'd have less, so that'd be less for the new player to worry about, and still be a viable player. But that's anyways, that aside, I love more powers. More power combos is great. That means that you get to do more cool stuff. You have the added benefit of getting to do interesting things and combine powers, and that always feels good from a team building perspective, to be able to pull off cool little combinations. And that was always a really interesting part of the game that I felt. And so this add-on is, it felt like it was just a throw to veteran players, and like, oh, I know we're taking a lot away, but here, have a cookie. And I don't know, but I'll take it. Shit, nah, excuse my language, bleep that out. But you know, as far as all these as far as these changes go, I'm for them. They need to be clarified. Certain specific powers need to be clarified. But yeah, I'm for them. Combo them up.
What do you think about this?
See, the big claim in any of why this was instituted was simplification and making the game more approachable. And like Chris said, if you're a shrewd, confident player, you've already found so many loopholes in all this, and you're gonna have somebody sitting across but you can't. This isn't supposed to work like, and then judge, and then it's gonna bring the game to a grinding halt.
I'm sorry, I can't exploit flurry now, and that did mean you have nothing left on your dial now.
You see, and that's where we're at. There's ways to do this. There are some ways that you can put all this stuff together, but where simplification was claimed, convolution has occurred. And until they put out a book, or until they show a chart that yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and they break all these powers down into what works with what, it's just going to be a lot of speculation. And I can already tell you right now, some of these combos are really nasty. Now, like super strength and taking away the damage that would have come from the knockback. You know, there's all these things that
not
work
only
together.
that, but does super strength even deal? Do objects even deal damage anymore?
That's the thing with like the
One. So they've all been reduced to light objects.
There's no special rules in the pack that have anything to do with heavy objects.
The only hope that we have for it is that since I theorize more generic token-based heavy objects. Don't fucking know that to be true.
See, but there's where we go with all
Comprehensive
this.
rulebook. Comprehensive rulebook.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Didn't you know?
I
The article
did.
briefly mentioned it
I
in
forgot.
passing.
I forgot that article mentioned a comprehensive rulebook, because after the rulebook came in from Wonder Woman, we were like, this is missing some things that I feel like a comprehensive rulebook needs.
It's not so comprehensive.
Yeah.
Well, the Wonder Woman one has some things that I like about it in the way that Heroclix needed to do for forever. Like color their images.
Yo.
I mean, here we go. There's
It's a 1980s game? Come on.
there's some benefit.
Join us
to
to the
Why is my
millennium wave.
diagram in black and white while I'm looking at a knockback diagram? What is happening? God. Whatever.
Especially
I'm sorry,
depicting
John.
terrain.
Take your time, but
depicting terrain that requires color.
with a black and white photo, and you're like, if you get knocked back, that's
arrows.
If you get like back when it was like, if you not get knocked back at elevated, then this happens, and all you see is a black and white photo, and you're like, what is this depicting?
Did you have anything else you wanted to say, John?
No,
Oh,
I'm
God.
good. I mean, I think we're all kind of in unison on this. There's going to be some good stuff from it, but it's not
What
making it
do you
easier.
think, O'Malley, about the new combos?
This was a particularly badly worded article. I think the moment we actually started reading the pack, a lot of it started to click in the way that we were seeing things like exploit and penetrating psychic blast no longer have the capital close.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
when you start reflecting on this article again, you can understand, oh, this is what they meant by these being in this category and these being in this category.
So it would have been useful if they put the pack up before everything came out.
The pack is always what's important. These are somewhat tertiary in the way that, like, we got to learn what Perplex was beforehand, but when we really knew what Perplex was the moment it came out in a pack.
Yeah. Anything else?
This was a badly worded article, and it
Yeah.
only makes sense now once we had actually access to the pack.
Yeah.
I like that we get to, like, combo hypersonic penetrating psychic blast now. That'll be fun. Or combine flurry exploit for a charge. That'll be fun. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be able to do, if you line up your stuff right, you'll be able to do some wicked damage to pieces. Like, and also now that Invincible doesn't have the limitations to a maximum 3 damage,
Yeah.
it means that that is still good, because if you're swinging for, you modify it up to, you can still, it's just more difficult, but you modify it up to a 6, you're still knocking them off of their invincible then, and then you're also then reducing past their other thing.
I mean, at that point, you're pretty much like in a Power Ranger scenario where you have like 3 people that are adjacent to you, giving you enhancement or empower that, you know, are combining forces and...
Sure. Let's put it this way. A single Omega with its thing
Sure.
is
yeah,
still
that'd be a
able
good
to
scenario.
totally get to a 6.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that you'll still be able to get to a 6 and avoid reducer in a way that will be able to still
Like
mess
Power
a-
Gem.
like mess
Power
a,
Gem. Power Gem
When-
gets a huge boost.
when
like,
you're on
mess a dude up.
When you're on the opposite end of that, it's hello, less fun, and that's what all this is supposed to be avoiding.
Oh,
So,
that's
Oh,
why I hate...
here's the thing.
Oh,
Here's
I
the thing.
hate-
It's super weird. I'm not going to complain about this one because this is the one that I actually enjoy, even though it's contradictory to everything else that we saw throughout all of these
Exactly.
other articles. Like,
expect an errata.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on this is I like where they're going. I like how I like the distinction of these are attack replacements and these are attack improvements. I think in my mind I can picture how like a blade that probably shouldn't be its own attack. You're just attacking with a blade.
Right.
But like a mind control, that is something completely different than like a regular attack. But it's kind of inconsistent because you have stuff like Quake and Energy Explosion that are very much the same power. One is just range and one's close, but Energy Explosion still requires a range, while Quake is passive on any close attack now. So it's inconsistent where they decided to do certain things, and I don't know. I like where they're going. I've seen charts on the internet. People been trying to make charts using this. People tried making charts the first time the article posted, and the charts made no sense because we didn't know how things combined. Now, even with the pack, people are trying to make charts, and the charts still kind of mess up because energy mind control can be a range or a close, but you can only combine certain things with mind control, and it's kind of weird. I like where they were going. I like the extra combinations, even though, like O'Malley said, they probably should have tried to rein in it a little bit. Some of the combinations, it's like the whole charge, quake, flurry, exploit thing seems too much. Like, could none of that be could 2 of those things not be a close? You know, I mean, like I don't know. I don't know. I think it's cool. Without going into what all the different powers do and how I feel about all the different powers and stuff. I'm fine with more things combining. I think it will be simpler, but at the same exact time, there's so many things to learn. It's gonna be like, it's still gonna be really hard to teach new people how to play the game.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, with the changes to the other portions of the game, something like Force Blast should have been a free action. Smoke Cloud, you wanna keep things, you wanna make things similar and for new players to digest, make Smoke Cloud a free action. I mean, you're already dampening the ability to stop for hindering terrain or I mean, what exactly is hindering terrain? The line of fire, but I mean, I don't know. Anyways,
It's dark over there in the corner. That's hindering terrain.
They're behind the bench.
Anywho, the I don't know. It just seems it just seems like Smoke Cloud could have been a free action. Keep it 4 squares, just like Barrier have similarities in that. You know, 4 squares, 4 squares. But you know, have it be a free action so that way characters can just have Smoke Cloud on their dial and that not be a poor piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like or a bad choice or
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I think that, you know, with certain other changes to the game, they could have incorporated additional changes, but to make the game, you know,
Yeah.
I guess balanced, which is what they wanted to do, and I don't know.
Okay, moving on to the next article is Rules Article 7. It's the last article they posted. What's in a name? Basically, it was a pretty simple article. They talked about the difference between free and at no cost, and how at no cost kind of led to some overpowerful effects. So they're gonna I mean, not bench it, but I was gonna say bench, but they're just gonna remove at no cost and just go back to free. And then,
Bye bye, Vulture.
well, no, he's still gonna play the
He's still
same.
gonna
Yeah,
do
just,
his-
Yeah, they
yeah,
all
but
get grandfathered
just
in.
going forward, they're not gonna do at no cost. And then place versus places, basically like moving someone across on the map is different than bringing something from out of the map onto the map, but it uses the same word place. And they're gonna try to use the word generate when you're bringing something from off the map onto the map, and still use the word place when you're moving somebody from one point of the map to another point of the map. And that was basically what the article is. There's really nothing. Um, there's really nothing to say this is the last article, so there could be further articles in the future. This past week was the Scott Porter unboxing, so they could start back with articles. I know there's little things we all would like for them to address and stuff. They leave an email, gamefeedback@wizkids.com if you want to. We're receiving lots of feedback, so we'll try to answer some questions. And
It crashed the website at some point.
so we've been skipping the questions things, but it's, we're trying to focus on the articles. But I guess starting with Chris, how do you feel about the free at no cost, at no cost being removed and just going with free? Which I guess you can only do once because you can only do free a specific free action once or once a turn, and then the whole place versus places. I mean, you have any issues with it?
Okay. I'm not against additional clarification. So place versus places, having a distinction, further going on and saying generate for bringing pieces in from outside of the map. I'm totally down for that. That sounds great. Have a distinction. It just clarifies things more. Great.
Yeah.
As far as the free versus at no cost goes, I remember when during the most recent rules change a couple years back, there was a really big deal about pieces that were created that were able to shut off free actions. So when the change came, it nullified those pieces and it made the game healthier in that sense, because those meta pieces didn't matter so much. They weren't as they weren't as bad for the game. So having this change go back to free, I don't mind. I err on the side of caution when it comes to free because it is a thing that can be limited, and pieces have a tendency to be designed in such a way that they can hamper certain abilities. And the minute that something comes out after this change to hamper free actions, it's gonna be devastating. I think that, I mean, can you double check if hypersonic speed gives you an attack as a free action,
Or is it at no cost?
or is it just make an attack at some point?
Yeah, I could definitely check that.
Because that would be. Before I say something
Hypersonic
that's,
speed, it's not free or at no cost. Just half
free,
range,
make an
move,
attack.
make an attack, move, speed value minus the squares you just moved.
right on. Okay.
Yeah.
So really, so that change is fine. So it wouldn't completely shut off all move and attack abilities like it once did, if that were to be the case of a piece being made that can shut off free actions, or limit them rather. It's, it definitely shuts off running shot, definitely shuts off charge.
Yeah.
Which isn't that what all of Wonder Woman is about?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there's
true.
even
There's
a
no
Flash.
hypersonic. Yeah.
There's even a Flash that has charge twice or something. So
Yeah.
it seems like it could be bad. I hope it doesn't get that way. If it doesn't ever get that way, change doesn't matter. Sounds good. I like that.
Okay.
Reduces the ability of things like vulture to occur.
So I'm cool with clarification, and I do think it's a good idea to be a little more specific. But coming around with what Chris was talking about, before, I don't know, 2 or 3 rule changes ago, it was when War of the Lanterns was going on, War of Light. You had all these free actions and nonsense going on at the time. And one of my most favorite pieces
Oh, I know this one.
of that generation was
I know this
White
one.
Witch.
Yep, that was it.
And she had a great static ability, and she had an even better, I believe it was a power action.
Yeah, you could do free or power.
And I'm looking her up right now because
She was a super rare prime or rare prime or something.
It wasn't the prime. The prime was Black Witch.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
you got to choose one. Power action, each opposing character's combat values can't be modified. Or free action, opposing characters can't be given more than one free action.
Same as the Green Lantern battery, did the same
And
thing.
she held the fort for the longest time on limiting those free actions until the rules changed, and then running shot, charge, all these things kicked it into a different format, so they were allowable. And I mean, she voyaged into obscurity at that point. But like Chris said, another piece comes down the pipeline that can tinker with that or limit it, or maybe it's something that allows an extra free action. There's no telling how it's going to play out. I'll give them this. Being more specific is going to help the situation. I don't know. It's kind of really an ebb and flow here. They dialed it in a while ago, then they brought it back, and now it seems like they're dialing it in a little bit. So let's see which way, if they zig or zag, here in a couple of years.
Right.
Anything on places?
That's been the most, generates the best word they could have thrown in there, because
Yeah,
that
agreed.
messed up so many things, and then it allowed for a loophole. And I mean, let's face it, as to how these loopholes get sorted out, bad rulings and stuff,
Right.
the nonsense that was coming with the Tri-Sentinel.
Mm.
Well, I'm gonna still, it doesn't matter if I'm retaliating.
Yeah.
There's that should have never been let out the gate. So let's hope with however these rules are evolving, that kind of stuff's mitigated before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those
Any thoughts
like,
on the
breaking
free
of
and no
the
cost
rules
places?
in such a way that it really goes against what it was all designed for, and
it was sanctioned. I mean, it was sanctioned.
It's fine. I think that this is good. One of the earlier pieces I can remember is Swarm used to generate a thing that made poison, and I had to get the clarification on whether that bystander then was able to activate poison or not.
Yeah.
Because whether it's a place or it's a generate and how those things are distinct,
Yeah.
I think if they're going to be as clear as they can moving forward with saying this is activated when generating and this is activated when placing, I think is always going to be good. Because the idea that if it was something like with Valeria and it said place this afterwards, or you would or you would like place something from outside of the map onto the, out like in there, it would be that would then take the damage, right? So you couldn't generate a dog or a robin from the thing because it's not a generate, those replace from off of the piece. And if it was next to a Valeria, then they would have been KO'd. That's just the way that those ones were worded that way. And if we go forward now saying these ones are generated, these ones are placed, I think that's just good for the game.
So my thought is, while Chris was talking about things that affect free actions, I was thinking about the Fast Forces Beast. It says every time your opponent uses a free action, he gets a token. And he can take 2 tokens off every turn to remove an action token from one of his friendly pieces. It's not hampering the opponent, but I mean, you got like a free token removal anywhere on the map. Like, if you're doing these free actions all over the place, I got 12 tokens. That's for the next 6 turns. Free, I can sit in the corner. Free token removal on my temple every turn for 6 turns. He's never going to have to stop. He can just keep going. I mean, like, yeah, it reminded me when we were talking, I think something you said a while back was like, if you simplify things, then something affects the simplification, it could be really stronger. I can't think that you said about something else that if it got simplified, you could affect it with something else and it could be too strong. But I think that's there. I think that was a really good point. And I think the whole article is kind of just like, yeah, that's good. It's a overall good thing, but it's kind of weird that like they would go in this direction for free at no cost, but then you look at the power ability card and you got 1+ for Pulse Wave, 1+ for Quake, and 1+ for Still Energy, and it's like, why couldn't you just like overall just try to be more clear on everything?
2
like,
or more.
Yeah. Why you have to like try to simplify things, but that make it not clear,
Right.
and then at the same exact time taking other things? It's like, I don't know,
and,
like,
if your goal is to change Quake and Pulse Wave to have it, not include single target bonuses, why be quiet about that? That's a big change. Talk about it.
Which again, there could be Article 8 next week or something, or Article 9 or whatever.
It's a little late.
Even more feedback.
Yeah, right. Yeah, even more feedback. We heard.
I would not be surprised.
I could totally see one that says clarification.
I can appreciate clarifications where they specifically say, this is what we're associating when it comes to Pulse Wave, Quake, and Knockback. Like if they are specific in those, so that way when they release, I forgot that it even mentions a particular core rule book, because I thought that all of the information that we were getting from the Wonder Woman stuff that we saw might have been all we got.
Right.
Well, that's all the people buying Wonder Woman are gonna get. I mean, if you buy the $40 starter set, it's not gonna have a comprehensive rule book in there.
Could be.
No,
get the comprehensive rule book.
There's already the contents.
People's already gotten the $40 thing. Wizkids sent it to people.
That's right. Yeah,
and they open it up. We know every little bit that comes in it, and there's no comprehensive rule book. So it's going to be something. I mean, for people that are just playing a board game, they may not even wonder about it.
Have they printed a team abilities card yet?
Oh damn!
I missed that.
They don't even have team abilities printed on anything.
They have it for ages.
The thing that's weird about team abilities is that they're all of the wording right now is on the card, rather than not on the card.
I get that, but there's sometimes when if they're gonna do that from here on out, fine, absolutely, then that's okay, but
like,
why not have it?
No, I totally get you. There should just be a section where it has all of them. But for right now, every time that there's anytime a character has a team ability on their card, the wording for how that team ability affects them is on that card.
I'm sorry, but this all completely smacks of Wizkids putting out as little effort as they possibly can. So whether it's an update to questions, oops, my bad, the proofreader screwed up and we had to fire him. So this whole +1, +2 nonsense to Pulse Wave, Steel Energy, and Quake, these are very simple things that could be communicated to the player base, and nobody's sitting here unhappy or questioning what's going on. There's some idea that these guys may or may not know what they're doing, so they respond to an issue. It has been a blackout of anything pertaining to convention exclusives, purchasables we were supposed to have last year. A lot of part of what this game is the ability to travel and go play in tournaments and go play battle royales and just as a group go have fun with your friends and see what you bring home. And I'm not arguing. It's better to stay at the house right now and be safe and catch up with your masks on and make the most of what you can. But for Wizkids to give us a glimmer of hope and an opportunity to look forward to something when we get vaccinated or however this COVID thing goes, and they've said nothing, they have made us choke down some of the most convoluted, god-awful rule changes I've ever seen. I mean, like, some of it makes some sense and can be considered good, but the majority of this is like somebody sat there for too much time on their hands and decided to mess with something that didn't really need to be messed with. And like with the whole pushing thing, they've made a mess of the Masters of Evil team ability. They've messed up Colossal Stamina. They've created this whole willpower Indomitable not thing. And like a good example I thought of was if it's like a single base pog and it doesn't have a combat dial, a bystander, then it should only be able to have one token on it. And that would solve so many problems that's going on with this, because now Pog armies are going to be able to go back to back without dying from pushing damage. So, you know, this is just my whole seeing where it's at. I'd like to be more of the pint glasses half full and things are going to be better, but I know how I really enjoyed the Future Foundation set. I really like the pieces in it, but knowing this Wonder Woman set's coming, it's not going to have the luster just because I know I don't have the options that came out that were in this set. And I know how upset you are about the Flash, Matt. You know, like, it just, there's a better way, whether it's communication or actually speaking with people or just, you know, opening some channel so voices can be heard and, you know, maybe even play testing or figuring it out.
So I think that's a good segue into just our final thoughts on everything. How do you feel about everything, Chris? Everything you've seen.
Well, okay. So it boils down to you know, this just feels rushed. It feels poorly conceived. It feels like it was conceived a while back and then forced through. It the way that WizKids has gone about this, just sort of announcing that there's going to be a change rather than, you know, talking with the community about what they would like to see changed. It really just feels bad.
No, but they don't like that.
So
Let's change a rule. Maybe you'll feel better, Chris.
yeah, right. So I don't know. I also on that note, I don't like the fact that they use that as a justifiable reason to make some of these changes. It's a competitive game. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. Losing will very rarely, also I'll put an asterisk, feel good. It's just the inherent nature of playing a game that has a winner and a loser. I don't think that that's valid enough to make changes and use that as an excuse to have these go on. It feels like it just feels like a lie. It just feels like a lie. That said, I like some of these changes. I feel like they were rooted in some of the community's outcries in certain aspects. I think that overall, I don't think that this will ultimately be successful in their goal that they set out to accomplish, just inherently because of poor timing. I mean, let alone the fact that where is this mysterious new player? I don't the elusive new player. Where would I don't know. I don't see very many people coming into a store asking questions about HeroClix other than people who are in the store for another reason and then see people playing HeroClix and then ask, "Oh, what's this?" That's been, in my experience, the way that people end up getting into HeroClix.
That's where most game one trials happen. Is people see the game and then we break off and be like, "Hey, you want to learn?"
Yeah. And that seems if you wanted to have that be the goal, you need posters, you need advertisement in such a way that promotes new players. New players try this, make it a benefit for new players to come in. If you wanted, here's another way that you could do it. Have a basic set of rules and an advanced set of rules. Have a set that's printed out that's geared more towards new players, but isn't really a detriment towards old players. You don't bench powers. You just print two versions of a card or a back and a front, much like the Cyclops, the Regenesis.
Yeah.
The battlegrounds.
Right. You have one side of the dial that's basic, where a special power that might be complex and give 2 or 3 different powers, or a variation of such, you just have one power. And they learn what it means to have a white power and then look up what that power is in the PAC. It just builds good habits, and it's just an example. It's just you can do it better if you did it differently. And that's pretty much what I feel sums up this entire thing.
Okay, so going forward after knowing all the rules, seeing the new rule book, how is the rest of the year looking for Chris?
Well, I'm gonna be going to the singles market. That's pretty much where I'm gonna be going. I do not support this. I don't think that benching powers is the way to go. I don't care for the rules changes. I've been through rules changes before. I'll go through rules changes again. It's they didn't really do anything too detrimental. They just need to make more clarifications, in my opinion. As far as benching powers, I am 100% against that. I don't think that that's the correct way to go about it. I will not be buying Wonder Woman sealed product. If they continue in this direction, I will not be buying sealed product at all until this changes or we see some difference. But I'm just gonna be headed on over to the singles. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about all the updates as a whole, and then also on top of that, how are you planning to approach Wonder Woman in the future sets?
I've seen so many changes come and go. I'm just hoping they're going to see the error of their ways, which probably is not going to happen, but maybe we'll get pushing damage back, or maybe they'll figure a way to unring a bell, which good luck with that. It just, there's a certain amount of knowledge I've accrued to be able to play the game the way I like to play it, and to have some of that stripped away for this like distilled down version, it just doesn't have the strategy, the nuances, the finesse you need to play a good healthy game with it. And it's tough to learn this game. It's inherently not easy. So like Chris said, a basic and advanced level of play. They've had such good keys to be able to do things, whether it was the battlegrounds or the X-Men Regenesis stuff. Let's face it, how many people have been stuck at home and can't do anything? Did you see Disney Plus have a single Heroclix Marvel commercial on it with Paramount coming up? Do you think we'll ever see a DC Heroclix commercial on it? You've got a zillion people's watching streaming stuff, and what would it take to just put a blurb up and check your local comic book store? Free comic book day figures. It's a good way to introduce and have somebody at least see a piece, and then they figure out what a booster is, but they raise the prices, so this is an affordable game. And like for what Chris said, he's not buying a case. I'll probably buy a case, maybe 2. It's usually what I get just because I know the equips in it will be useful, and I do like supporting, my local store. But
that's the biggest thing that I really have to suck down is in order to be able to because you know, I feel that you have that the way you support things is with your time and with your money, and if you're taking some of that away, then you know, then you're showing that you're not supporting. The biggest detriment I feel is the fact that you know my local game shop is going to suffer because of that.
And they've held on. Those guys have literally towed the line. We get to shop at Deckbox. Hooray! Thank you, Deckbox.
Yeah, thanks, Xbox.
Woo, Xbox.
We're lucky we have them as a venue because we bounced around multiple times. And just to toe the line as a group, you rewind back to the Harlequin set, there'd be 3 or 4 more people in this room as a part of Team STOPCLIX. And we've lost some of these players. Now, be it to ID cards, be it to lack of interest, be it to family or moving on to other things, it's really hard to bring somebody into the fold with this. And as a group, I mean, this past COVID year, we set out at a pavilion in a local park playing on picnic tables, and people would come by and be like, oh my God, that game's so cool. What are y'all doing? And we told them every time, Deckbox, we'll be back next Saturday if the weather's good. You're more than welcome to try to participate. And unfortunately, which life is what life is, the 4 of us are still sitting here. My son would be here. He's hanging out with some in-laws and what have you. But, you know, that's what I take away from all this. It's the stuff Wizkids could have done a little different, whether it was promotion or treating the players right or just getting the word out there. You guys are going through it. We still want you to understand that this game is what you enjoy. Thank you for spending your money on it. So let's do something as to when we get back to it, there's going to be an organized play event to look forward to. Or if you guys can make it, or even if you have to sign up and buy it online, here's the con exclusives from last year. Get your master mold so you can play it with the rest of your Sentinels.
I forgot all about Master Molds.
That's what I'm saying. So you can play it before they retire Dark Phoenix, and then you can use the Sentinels with the guy that generates them. And honestly, those are the things I really look forward to. I had a blast last year at Worlds, and it wasn't just like, oh, I'm ultra meta, let's go play in competitive. I just wanted to have a good time. I took my son to a Elvis-themed La Quinta Inn, and it was just fun being out of town. You know, we got to go swim around in a pool the shape of a guitar and play Heroclix.
Oh,
What's wrong
Not
with that?
not at the same time.
Oh,
See, that's the maybe something.
go Aquaman.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yep,
that's not hindering train.
Oh,
We don't know what
go
water
change
spraying
to
is.
Jameson.
We don't know what water
it's a
spraying is.
pool. It's water. I don't have dolphin, O'Malley. What's wrong with you? Anyway, that's where we're at. You know, at least we can make fun and laugh. But yeah, that's the bad part of it. Look how much we haven't been able to do what we do. We usually go down to Greenville, compete with those guys. We go to Greensboro.
Forest City.
Exactly. And, you know, we've held it together. We have been able to catch up with some people out of some of those locations. But, I mean, the way I see it and what's going on with this game, the numbers are dwindling. And that's kind of, there's not enough consumers out there. This game's a luxury, let's face it. So if you got to put food on the table or play a game, gas in the car, you know, think about how many people that play that don't have jobs, you know. And I'm hoping everybody gets back to normal. But it's tough right now. And, you know, I hope just somehow before a decision's made, they really think through how that decision will affect the bottom line, and that's us, the players. You know, so hopefully somebody's listening, but we'll see.
Okay, O'Malley, how do you feel about the overall rule changes, and then how are you on board for Wonder Woman and X-Men Rise and Fall? What do you feel?
Wonder Woman I will buy. If X-Men Rise and Fall has bench powers, I will not buy sealed for that. Wonder Woman is the thing. I think about this in this way. The reason why I came to this game was because I was looking to play with these characters. And what kept me around for longer was that I fell in love with the gameplay. Like, the thing is that there are characters in this Wonder Woman set that I won't get to see again in a Heroclix form for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that is the thing of, if this was a Marvel set, or this was a different DC set, or this was an animated set, I would be like exactly with Chris, where I'm like, hey, I'm going all onto the singles market because there's like what the fuck ever. And I honestly felt a little bit of this. I felt a little bit of this with like even the Future Foundation set, where there are sidekicks that have no movement power, maybe no defense power, and I'm just kind of in a situation where I'm like, these are pretty bones. They're weirdly long for 10 points in terms of dial length, but I'm not particularly interested in collecting a lot of these. This Wonder Woman set, I'm kind of because of the characters that are in it all in for. The rules changes, some good, some bad. I don't know. They
got you by the short and curly.
the thing is that this is the set that I just can't boycott, and it's upsetting. Because the other thing that's super weird about this is that this set is doing some things that I think are things Heroclix needed to do for forever. We talked about the color pamphlet for like being appealing to look at. The thing that we're getting for the Wonder Woman set and the fact that they're laminated maps are super cool in a way that Heroclix has needed to do for a very long time. And the fact that it's getting that kind of glam up, and then it's being displayed to all of these other people who they send some stuff to people who aren't Heroclix players, which hey, guess what?
That's the right thing to do. That's the right move.
It's a super right thing that the places where you advertise this are people who are interested in comics or people who are interested in board games. And if I were to say where Heroclix hasn't been advertising, they should have. It's the people who are interested in comics. That's the one that they have consistently like dropped off, and the fact that there aren't free comic book day Heroclix ones anymore is like the sign that they dropped off from that almost entirely.
Guys, what was the movie? There was a movie at some point in time. If you showed up at the movie theater, you got a HeroClick, right?
I have no idea.
A movie where you got a hero clip.
No,
They didn't
no
do it?
idea.
I don't know.
It wasn't anything recent.
No, it was a long time ago. It was when the superhero movies started hitting. But I know
Your memory is really good though.
I have
so
no idea.
And I,
But
I
Maybe it
wasn't
was
playing
just the
back then.
local
I mean,
comic book shop was giving out the free comic book day click at the theater.
They
You
could
know what
do
I'm
that.
saying?
I mean, honestly though, it could have been pre-carded, which is all before all of us. So like, it could. I mean, yeah, that's possible.
I know Scott was out there. He may have been handing out free comic book fate, and that's a perfect thing in an Iron Man movie to check out this little Iron Man.
Well, I mean,
Iron Man, just Iron Man, the first movie. Wow, jeez, what was that?
2008.
Ages ago.
yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, honestly, they made a Black Widow Gravity Feed set. I don't think the movie's out yet.
Nope.
But
That's it.
That's so weird.
they made a movie set and they put it in Target, which is
Yeah.
Was it in
good.
Target?
And
Oh,
Widow was
okay.
meta. Widow
Which
was meta.
that's good, but like,
It's so
what about other things?
Yeah,
you
it's,
know?
it's so funny to see like the Black Widow pieces are so far in their creation, and like how they've lasted a bit. We've had them for a while, and the movie just hasn't come out yet. Like
What is even with this? I don't know.
I wonder
Okay.
what's
I
gonna
don't
happen first, retirement or the movie.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say? On everything.
On everything, I feel like I've expressed my opinion on everything already throughout this. The thing is that like I'm looking forward to doing some wackadoo power combos. I'm looking forward to playing again. The fact that we're filming this so close to vaccines being rolled out is the thing that's making me look forward to the future in a way that I'm looking forward to playing Heroclix in a location where I am enjoying playing Heroclix in a way that I haven't gotten to in a long time, and that's what I'm super excited about with Heroclix. Not as much the changes to the game. I'm just excited by the idea that I would get to go buy and play sealed at an event, or that I could buy my store buys some archaic product, and I'm like, hey, let's have a retro day where we just buy some of the archaic product that they have there, and like play a seal for that. Like, that's the kind of stuff that makes me super excited about Heroclix going in the future. In comparison to the rules changes, I am more excited about being able to play Heroclix in a venue, play for OP kids, do those kinds of things are what's more exciting to me.
Pre-releases sealed. It's been tough without that.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that excites me about the future of HeroClix, not as much the rules changes.
Yeah.
Playing this game will always be what I look forward to most.
So, I mean, just to jump onto that, I mean, when you said that, I almost teared up a little bit because, like, I mean, everybody here knows, but not everybody on the internet knows that I've been organizing Heroclix events for a long time. Whether it was at Deckbox or Pastimes or Comic Envy or
Morgan's.
Morgan's Comics. I mean, I've been organizing events. I've been participating in storyline events since they started with Infinity Gauntlet. You know, like one of the reasons, like I jumped from Pokemon to Heroclix was because of the characters and stuff. But when the storyline events started happening, War of Light, and the whole freaking reason I won that Wizkids event, the raffle or whatever, because it was my love of War of Light and the storyline event and all that kind of stuff. It has been so hard on so many of us that we haven't been able to get back in the store and play and meet weekly and talk about what's new and try out our new combos and talk to the store owners and teach new people the game and all the little things we've been doing for so many years that this last year that it has to have affected all of us in a really negative way. And I'm looking forward to that hopefully happening soon. I don't know when, because there will be other issues. But I just had to talk about that because
We're one step closer.
we're one step.
You can see the tape at the end of the race finally.
I don't know about that part, but
Yeah, I mean,
it's
there's the finish line now.
I think
Yeah.
it was John who said something about like when it is time to do this, when it's time to get back in the store, he wished Wizkids would like really do something. I feel like it's almost like a do or die for Wizkids when things start to really start opening back up. If they don't hit the ground running and make it the biggest freaking anniversary, whatever the heck it is, to get people back in the store, to get people excited about playing again, to capture the look and the sight of people that be looking out from the game, then they're just throwing the game away. And like I could be so excited if we do this some big storyline event, but if it's like literally we're back in April and then there's nothing for the rest of the year other than a set or two to buy, and we don't know about storyline events, we don't know about organized play kits, we don't know about convention exclusives, we don't know about any of this stuff. It's gone dampen a bit, and
Wonder Woman feels like they're called shot, and everyone is seeing that it's too early for it.
Well, I'll say this: if it's to do something, it's in our hands, guys. We just come up with something at the venue, and we can make it.
it shouldn't
do
have
whatever
to
we
be.
want.
It
Yeah,
shouldn't
but
have to be.
I'm not arguing.
but
I'm not arguing,
but
but we can.
but
I mean,
the
we
time-
get the venue back.
Of course.
The time
course,
to push
but-
for advertising is when this set is released.
Yeah,
Like-
absolutely. And there's a certain way to go about it that I feel like is just being completely overlooked. And I think you hit on it a little bit earlier. But they need to be reaching out to these streamers, I think, or content creators who sort of dabble in the general board games, comic books, just what have you. Someone just a bit outside of the HeroClix norm, but maybe has a bit more of a fan base. So that way you can get this game in the eyes of other people, and they see what they you have them play a game.
Yeah.
And that's how you promote it. You sponsor the video, and that's the way that people are advertising nowadays, and I feel like that's a good way that they're just ignoring, that they're not either utilizing or what have you. But that's, I feel, a good way to advertise, along with handing out these bricks and to other people.
To other people.
Yeah, like
I mean, they're doing
Gail
it to like.
Gail Simone, absolutely, yeah. And I think that's fabulous. That's great. You also need to be doing this as well. And I feel like if and that was also another good idea as in addition, was when people, instead of putting your time and effort into revamping the rules, put it into when things start back up again, you have this really interesting, organized play event where people want to come back and play. So I just, it seems like, back to what I was saying earlier, there's a right way to do it, and actually there's many right ways to do it, and this just isn't it.
Did you have said something?
I was going to say it's a shame that Galactus was released during all of this, because I think that would have been a prime opportunity to kind of show some of the real the ways that things can be like pop, like super pop pieces with like a lot of glam. That like that one has a lot of like the box and everything to it has a lot going for it in terms of visual pop. I think this Wonder Woman set's boxing and its and even its starter set has a lot of like great glam ups that this game has needed, and in that way that it's able to just like be on a shelf and be more appealing than it was before. I think Heroclix is doing that in its way, but it needs to be able to do more specific stuff with showing people play the game in a way that is going to be like, hey, I want to play that game now, and there isn't.
Right. So about the rules updates, I kind of feel like what John said, where they're taking this piece of meat that had all these really nice crispy layers on the outside, and they're trimming it down, and yeah, this is okay what's left, but you have a lot of pieces of scraps on the ground that dogs will just go to heaven on. And like a lot of people enjoyed those scraps. A lot of people enjoyed the crispy bark on the outside of the meat or whatever. I feel like he did a analogy.
Sure.
I did an analogy.
There's an analogy here. I'm just the burnt ends kind of thing where people like them.
Okay, he's better. He's better at them. Okay, anyways. But I feel like going back to
the moment the meat's on the floor, I'm like, what the fuck?
3 second rule up, Emily. 3 seconds.
We're lost.
Going back to Rule Zero. The 3 goals. The one that sticks out is focusing Heroclix on the fun and strategic choices for veterans.
Bullshit.
And oh damn. Okay. Well, okay.
I definitely. There's no way I'm so.
I feel like there's so many avenues with TK, with incapacitate, with stuff like with the hindering movement thing, that they took away options for veterans. And that to me is the biggest thing, on top of, and I'll go on my soapbox for a second, communication. I think we've all mentioned it in some form or some other thing. Like if this was what they were planning, we should have known about it last year. And we should have been able to submit feedback last year. And, I just don't understand how... I can understand the Galactus thing. That could have been an amazing storyline event last year, but they can't... They're not to blame for the pandemic.
How late was Galactus pushed back?
That's the other thing that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah,
They're not to blame for the pandemic.
No, you can't blame for the pandemic, but if you're looking at potential things that like were mentioned probably before the pandemic with that sculpt, and then it just being like oh man, how am I even gonna buy my Galactus now that I can't go to Worlds? I remember that being the thing for it, where it was that sculpt was revealed before, was like, oh, this is supposed to be a thing I'm gonna buy at Worlds, and then we know Worlds is canceled, and then we go.
Technically, it was supposed to be the grand prize for the summer storyline event. I'm pretty sure I read that, and then they had to cancel all organized play in March, and they said the Galactus would be available through other means.
End of the summer, we didn't get it till September.
And I think part of that was probably the shipping from China. Was affected by pandemic-related stuff. But
like, if that Galactus was available in organized play fashion or storyline fashion, I think that would have been big for the purposes of actually like glam piece. It is a glam piece. So like,
So I don't blame them for the pandemic-related stuff that is outside of their control. But darn it, they could be communicating regardless of what's going on. And it's almost more important to communicate during something like this than it is when everything's just easy going, because the people at home, they can't get out and they're going, I'm losing touch with this game. I need something to hold me on there. And the company sticks their neck out and says, hey, here's something to look forward to. Here's, how do we know about X-Men Rise and
Yeah.
Fall? It wasn't from Wizkids. It was
Right.
from randomly on the monthly release schedule. Like, they have avenues to communicate. They're not choosing to communicate. 2020, I don't care who you are on the internet, it says they did nothing wrong in 2020. 2020 was a disaster for Wizkids in the communication department. Doesn't matter the design insight articles. It was a disaster in my opinion.
Well, this popping up the way it did is pretty much a kick in the gut. Because this is sprung right before a major DC release. And let's face it, for DC fans, once a year just doesn't cut it. Now, that may be out of WizKids' hands.
Yeah,
There may be nothing to be done about that.
Yeah.
But to decide this and this change a year ago, it seems like you're inviting your own misery. You're not able to look out for your customer when you're doing something along these lines and you're receiving no input and you're not putting any information out there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, here you go, DC fans, and instead of this tasty steak, you've got a piece of, gristle.
So, how am I approaching Wonder Woman set? So I started out going almost an O'Malley perspective. This is my DC set of the year. I have to support it. I wasn't able to support Just League Unlimited just because it came out like right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I think a lot of stores did not order it as much, and it sold out locally before I could even get my hands on anything. But whatever. I did have an unboxing for Rebirth. I'm a huge DC fan, all that kind of stuff. I was gonna support Wonder Woman. At the same exact time, I have to think about what the pieces in the set am I going to be playing them, and I look at the common uncommon rare set and I go, a bunch of Amazons. How often are we going to get more Amazons? Not that often. So it's just going to be a set that I only play with the few pieces and then I never play again. And then I look at the super rares and I go, are the super rares characters I really want to get? House of X. I mean, the distribution issues were horrible, but House of X, maybe my top 3 character selection set. Because the super rares were between Nightcrawler and Kate Pride and Apocalypse and a Gambit. They were awesome character selections. But I look at this one, and yet they're Wonder Woman related, but they're kind of like 4 of them are Wonder Woman, and some of these Wonder Woman bad guys that I probably would never play. So I'm just like, I don't think I really would be interested in super rares. But then I'm like, there's Green Lantern, and if anybody knows, Green Lantern is my favorite superhero. He's my weakness. He's the thing I will go beyond and above to try to get. And then I saw a super rare Flash, and I saw a Chip. I think he's Chip. And I saw Lantern Chases, and I'm going, okay. They got me. Sook Hunt, whatever the thing is.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yes, I was saying. I sometimes mix the letters up.
We all do.
And then, so I'm like, I'm on board because of the chases, and the final straw was the Flash. I won't get into it.
I have that text. It's right here on this phone, and it cannot be shown to the public.
No. But I loved Trash Can Spidey as an affordable harasser. When they announced Super Rare Nightcrawler, I was so looking forward to a affordable harasser. He does some decent stuff. When they announced Super Rare Flash, I was looking forward to an affordable harasser that could fit onto most of my Justice League teams. And this is a very creative design, World Team Championship. People, I give you that. But it's not what I wanted for a well-rounded, decent doll Flash. And I have other options. I'm playing the Rebirth one today with the Power Gem. But I just really wanted a super rare Flash. The last one we had was from the Teen Titans set in 2013, I think. So I just wanted more. So where my stance is, I'm going to be buying singles from Wonder Woman. I'm probably in on X-Men Rise and Fall, but I don't like the dolls for the leaders and sidekicks, captain sidekicks. So if we get a bunch of like 8-click long Cyclopses and Wolverines, and then we get some like little Gambits that are 20 points, I'm like, maybe I'll just pass on that one, So, and again, we don't know anything after Rise and Fall, so who knows?
Well, man,
So hold on really quick.
Yeah.
So the captain and sidekick mechanic is set to return for Rise and Fall.
I mean, when they mentioned when they did the Design Insight article, one of the things they mentioned was that they were going to try to keep mechanics going instead of just being like a one set thing. That's why we had Secret Identity with Diana Prince in the Wonder Woman set. That's why we had the Captain thing in the Wonder Woman set.
Right.
Because they're trying not to just like
Captain
do one
Sidekicks.
set and then you know
Right.
same with special objects.
And that's
Letters.
great. I really like that. I just inherently I'm already thinking of an issue that could come up. Like for example, you have Sidekicks, and then Herbie, and then Krakoan Revival.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
See, I look at
There's
it
a-
from this side of things. We're at a point with this game where they're restructuring what's in the booster. And for the longest time, Avengers Defenders War, I think it was great. I just opened a rare, Foggy Nelson or something like that. And you're struggling to put enough points out there to have a chance to go toe to toe.
Future
And
I remember
like that. Yeah.
these guys skew the game by now. The rares, super rares, and chases are going to be the ones that have the teeth to do the work. So, like, these guys were saying, how are you supposed to field a decent team with 25, 30, 15, 10-point sidekicks,
Yeah.
and you're counting on
Yeah.
one linchpin to run them, and all that stuff's pushed to the high end of the spectrum. 8 chases, 12 to 15 super rares, and then a handful of rares, and there may not be enough of that to put a good squad together out of your booster. And this is all a healthy way to change things. So, you know, that's not how this should be going. Because, I mean, think back to the Deadpool set. And if you got that 120-point Cable.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, that was dynamite comic.
Or even the common Batman Beyond from the Batman animated set.
Yes, exactly. So to take things out and shift that whole allocation in the booster, it just kind of shows that there's not a lot of forethought as to how this is gonna. I mean, we're not even playing sealed so much. We find a way to get a hold of a breaker case, and then we draft out of it. And whether it's battle royale or sealed, as a group, we're able to somewhat do this. But as to showing up at a store and being able to run things, it's going to be interesting to see how these boosters play when this product gets to us in the future. So,
Anybody have anything else to say before we wrap this up?
No.
Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this. This could end up being like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour video. So if you got through all this, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Here's hoping that things are going to improve in the future. But make sure, in the meantime, to make sure you're wearing your mask, washing your hands, staying socially distanced, because there are still people out there that can get sick. And there's, regardless of what the rules are, regardless of what's coming out, there's always going to be something out there for us to be and enjoy with the game. So let's just focus on what we enjoy, what we can find to enjoy, and let's just try to make it through the rest of the year until we can get back together and play with people. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.